trust Brock Purdy? My answer is no.
Hell no.
I think
look at his career postseason record. Is he like 2-5?
I believe that's correct.
No, the answer is no. Also, if this list had anything to do with statistics, Brock Purdy would be on the list, and he'd probably be number 2. He had the best stats in the NFL last year.
However, I would look, okay.
Which that would also be ridiculous. That's why I'm saying that Brock Purdy being left off the list actually makes more sense to me than Matthew Stafford being at number 5.
Now, here are the guys.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch, happy Tuesday to those who celebrate. We are doing it. So the Padres are too. Nice little series against the Guardians, taking 2 games from Cleveland, one of the MLB's best teams, certainly MLB's best home team. And then they're on their way to the Washington Nationals, who the last time they saw the Nats, a little blood boiling. Jurickson Profar gets thrown at. Mackenzie Gore. It was the whole thing. It was an emotional series. They were able to sweep the Nationals. Nationals are no slouches. This is going to be one of the more impactful series of the Padres season, followed by one of the more impactful Padres series of the season. This team needs to show out over the next handful of games because A.J. Preller and company, and specifically the ownership before A.J. Preller, because the common denominator here that is going to exist after all of these players move on, after A.J. Preller potentially gets fired or retires a Hall of Fame general manager and president of baseball operations, should it go that way, it is going to be this front office and these owners. That's the common denominator. So if A.J. Preller does well here, if the Padres do well for A.J. Preller and A.J. Preller does well at the trade deadline, all arrows are pointing up. So let's hope for that.
How funny to think about the impact that the next 6 games can actually have.
Yeah.
You're talking about A.J. Preller keeping his job or not potentially come the end of this year if the Padres don't make the postseason. And I would like to think that whatever they do here before the trade deadline will impact whether or not they make the postseason this year. And you think about A.J. Preller from a long-standing approach, like he is one of the 3 longest tenured general managers in all of baseball currently. He has never really had a ton of success as a Padres general manager outside of one run to an NLCS, which admittedly was awesome. But A.J. Preller, if this works, like if his whole grand scheme over the last decade plus works, and the San Diego Padres at some point here over the next couple of years in their window of winning, as Peter Seidler called it, can actually hoist a World Series trophy, A.J. Preller will absolutely go to the Hall of Fame. And go down as a great GM.
Well, I don't know. Here's the thing. Like it's obviously harder to go to Cooperstown as a contributor than it is as a player. Will A.J. Preller ever be a Hall of Fame general manager or executive in any facet? I don't know. I mean, I think it would probably take 2 or more World Series for that to be the case. But what I will say is it means the plan worked. It means that for all of the losing seasons or poor seasons that we all suffered through together as Padres fans, it was the ends justify the means. That's the bottom line. I mean, really and honestly, when it comes to business, and I hate to be less emotional about sports than sports are emotional, so it's very difficult to say, the ends justify the means, because no, that doesn't really tell the whole story, because there's a lot of bumps in the road that we all suffer through or enjoy together. There are good times too. So that's not really true, but in business it is. When you are a business and the Padres are in the business of winning games and winning World Series, and the organization makes more money when all of that happens, if A.J. Preller does find a way to navigate this season toward a World Series berth, and forbid I say a victory, considering maybe how bleak it's looked at times this season, not only will he save his job, but chances are he'll get a fat extension. And so if you're tired of A.J. Preller, well, buckle up, Buttercup. We're going for more years if that's the case. Even if they make a deep run, there's potential for an extension, because what he will inherit is a great deal of trust from this new reorganization of the ownership, because they gave him less money and he did more. So we'll see. Look, hope springs eternal at the trade deadline. We've got another bite at the apple here. There've already been 2 big trades. We have Luis Ariz, we have Dylan Cease. There's room for more. I don't know how much more room.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. I talked to Kevin Acee yesterday around 2:00, and Rich, by the way, he did say that on his off day yesterday in Washington, D.C., he was going to try to sightsee a little bit, and he was going to try to go. I told him, because Bryce Miller's also in D.C. right now doing some other stories on the Point Loma Nazarene women's volleyball team. Got to go to the White House yesterday, so Bryce was with them. He has a great article up. Bryce also checked in with AJ Preller yesterday. Great article up on that. We'll get to some of the quotes in the 8:00 hour. But I told Kevin, if he goes with Bryce Miller and gets an old fashioned last night, it was on me. I would buy it just because I want Kevin to go do something, right? And so he did say he was going to try to explore Washington, D.C. a little bit because it's rare that he gets an off day on the road. That's the Kevin Acee thing. But what he said about the Padres is that whatever this is going to be, it's not going to be splashy. He said they're going to add pitching, most likely. He said he'd be shocked if they didn't. And if they don't add pitching, we got a whole nother set of issues, see 2021. But he said they're going to add pitching. It's not going to be somebody astonishing out of nowhere, one of AJ Preller's moves that leaves us all dumbfounded, unless it is, but it's probably not going to be that. It will be a guy like maybe James Paxton, who the Dodgers just DFA'd yesterday. And that's a very Rich Hill moment, right? That the Padres did a couple years ago. Like, it's bringing in a guy who's past his prime, had some good times in this league, but was just DFA'd by the Dodgers, who need starting pitching as much as the Padres do. So how much do you really want a James Paxton on your team right now? But that's what it's going to be. It's going to be someone who can eat innings and hopefully help them get to the postseason. Because once they get to the postseason, Richie, I don't know about you, but watching Matt Waldron and Dylan Cease and Michael King and hopefully Joe Musgrove when he returns, you don't need a whole lot more starting pitching than that. You just need more starting pitching to get there.
I think you need pitching depth. And I also think you need to realize that we're relying on guys who are, for the most part, are completely untested.
Waldron and King both way past their innings that they've ever surpassed in their career already.
And also think about where they're headed towards. Regular season, second halves of regular seasons are untested for both these guys, but also the postseason. I mean, look, there is something to be said about greatness when you are under fire, keeping your composure. That to me is what separates the good from the great. You know, who are you looking to? I always use this analogy, but who are you looking to in an emergency? Is it the guy losing his mind, huffing in a brown paper bag? Or is it the guy who looks like he's been there before, who's not freaking out, who's at rest in chaos? Like, that's the guy I'm going toward. Now, he also may be a psychopath, but if he's a solid pitcher all season long and he has a
Are you talking about Tom Brady?
Well, so that's good. So playing with Tom Brady when I was with the Patriots, it didn't matter the scenario. You felt like you could win the game. It didn't matter how far behind the 8 ball you got in the first half. You felt like you could win the game. It didn't matter if it was the fourth quarter and you're trailing 2 scores. You felt like you could win the game. Trust me when I tell you this. I played with other quarterbacks who I didn't feel that way about. And it's no offense to them. They were still very good quarterbacks. In fact, many of them were very good quarterbacks. But the reality is you need somebody who can pull everybody under the tent and say it's going to be okay. Joe Musgrove is a piece that they may need. He has playoff experience, and hopefully he comes back, and hopefully he comes back strong and brings that trademark hometown spirit and leadership that we've seen from Java Joe. I can't wait to see him pitching again and pitching well. But I don't think we're looking at a finished puzzle. I think there is a piece missing, and it could be a rotational piece, or maybe it's a relief piece, but it feels like they need more depth.
And the Joe Musgrove thing, we talked to Kevin about that yesterday as well. He said it's at least a month still. So it may be the end of August. It may be the beginning of September with Joe Musgrove, because with everyone coming back from an injury and missing as much time as he has, even once he's healthy, there's going to be a ramp-up phase. And even when he's healthy, there's probably going to be a setback or two. You know, it's just how it goes with starting pitchers and arm injuries. And so Joe Musgrove still has a ways to get back. And then when he gets back, you just kind of have to hope that he's Joe Musgrove and he's not injured Joe Musgrove. And that's a tough thing to do. And Kevin also talked about Yu Darvish and said, look, even if Yu Darvish calls AJ Preller today and says, hey, AJ, ready to come back. I got everything figured out. Family stuff is settled. I'm ready to come back and commit to this team. He's probably still a month out because he's got to go through everything to ramp back up and get ready to go, unless somehow he's been throwing bullpens every day and throwing against live hitters every day like that, which no one really thinks is happening right now. So the hope being a strategy for those two guys might not be your best strategy right now, because there's also just concerned that when Joe Musgrove does come back, he's not competing at a high level because injuries suck. Rich, you know that better than anyone, right?
Yeah, well, the problem with injuries is that a lot of people think because you return to the field, oh, everything's resolved. Well, no, that's not how it works. And athletes want to rush back to the field as quickly as they can. In most cases, you're not even near 100% when you first come back from an injury. You just know that based on the trajectory of your recovery, you're healthy enough to not re-injure, or you've made other compensatory moves, like strengthen some other areas of that joint or the muscles that support that joint, that you're going to be able to fight through it. Well, that doesn't mean you're going to be effective, or it doesn't mean that it isn't going to bother you and get in your head sometimes throughout the course of the rest of the season or a portion of the season. So not all injuries are the same. Certain guys have a greater propensity for recovery than others. But what I know is that they can be nagging. They usually are. And the situation exists that he's been injured twice already this season. You know, Darvish has been injured twice this season, and now he's on the restricted list. What happens if ... I mean, the Padres haven't been particularly lucky in the first half. So when I say pitching depth, I mean it. It may not seem like you need another guy in the rotation right now. And I understand what you're saying about Waldron and King and Cease and Musgrove. But what if? You have to plan and make a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. You can't just say, well, hopefully these guys stay healthy. That's not going to work.
Especially
because it hasn't.
Yeah, and especially in the case of Michael King and Matt Waldron, we're already in uncharted territory. And who knows if there is a number out there that the Padres aren't willing to go over with Michael King, who has never had this much starting pitching in a single season before. And there might be a number out there that once he hits that, they're like, well, this is the number. We got to shut him down in terms of an innings limit. That we don't know if that number exists or not. We kind of assume it does. It's more likely it exists than not. So what's the chance that like maybe Michael King gets shut down for a little bit here in the second half? I think either way you slice it, Richie, you're 100% right that they need to add pitching here, and probably not just one starting pitcher. It probably needs to be a couple. And I don't know the quality of the guys that they're going to be able to get, because there are money issues here. The Padres cannot go over that luxury tax again. Well, they could, but they're not going to, because it would be 4 years in a row, and that increases the penalty. And from what we know about the Padres, they're not willing to go over that.
Well, there's one way you can do that, is if you can find a way to have somebody take some of the salary off your books. If you move, look, not every Major League Baseball player is attractive, and there's many reasons why. You know, you may have a guy who may have some level of importance on your team, like a Ha-Seong Kim, for example, but the rest of baseball doesn't see him as valuable as his salary may prove to you. Like the thought process is, all right, well, if we move him, we get somebody to eat his salary, even though they don't really need him or want him, but you're also going to package a couple of prospects with it. Well, you can get a pretty good, rotational arm by offloading some of your salary, almost like a 1-for-1 trade, but not. You're giving them a financial burden, but you're also giving them prospects, and more prospects. Think, okay, to compare it to NFL terms, for people who watch that sport more and don't understand trades in baseball, like Jared Goff was offloaded for 2 first-round picks to Detroit to bring in Matthew Stafford. You say, wait a second, so Detroit got 2 first-rounders and Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. How and why? Well, it's because Detroit didn't really want Jared Goff. And if they did, they really did a good job bluffing, because they were able to milk an extra first-round draft pick out of the Los Angeles Rams and Les Snead, the general manager, to send a quarterback who, by the way, this ended up being a fair trade, because as good as Goff has been for the Detroit Lions, my goodness, Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl his first year playing with the Los Angeles Rams. He truly proved to be the missing piece of that offense. So everybody went home happy, but they offloaded a first-rounder with Goff just so they would eat Goff in the trade. That was it. That was the reason why. Otherwise, that's a first-rounder.
And we'll see. The Padres, if you talk about a Ha-Seong Kim, like, it would have to be coupled with a few prospects, because Ha-Seong Kim right now is at his lowest value of his entire career, which is tough to say. He's just really struggled so far this season. Now, the other issue that the Padres can run into, and look, the most important part is they win a lot of these next 6 games, right? And then AJ Preller can work some magic. We've seen him do it plenty of times before, even when we thought there wasn't much magic to be worked. The toughest problem they're going to have this year, Dodgers are in on pitchers. Orioles are in on pitchers. Yankees are in on pitchers. All three of those teams have much deeper farm systems and more flexibility with money than the San Diego Padres do.
I have a question that I don't think has been asked yet. And if it has been, forgive me, but you have a pitcher who's getting paid a ton of money on the restricted list. And on the restricted list, you're not paying that pitcher. So are you still above the tax if you go and get a pitcher at the trade deadline and that eats up that salary that you're not paying you Darvish for the rest of the season potentially?
As far as I know, it does still affect the CBT because it goes with annual average value of the contract. So it's not just taking you Darvish's money for this year and placing it against the luxury tax. It's taking the money for his entire contract and making the annual average value of it. Yeah. So we did ask that question and got a convoluted answer. And I believe it was Danny Vietti who answered it. And he said he had actually just done some research on it and say it might affect it a little bit, but not enough to make a huge difference.
So look, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of how heavily penalized you'll be if you go over this threshold that the Padres have been flirting with or over for the past handful of years. The window's open and this team is good enough. When you squint, you can see a good enough roster to make the stretch run and really play some great baseball down the stretch, but they have needs and really a lot of question marks. And I don't know if they're going to be able to solve all those questions at the trade deadline. So it puts us in a very similar position potentially on the other side of the trade deadline that we're on this side of the trade deadline, which is how much do you believe in the current construction of the roster? If you believe mightily in them, well, this is a playoff team. If you don't, well, it's going to look a lot like last season. All right. Everybody's been talking about it. The West Coast listenership, maybe even some of the Central and Mountain time, definitely the Eastern time, has been begging us for a halftime with your own Fletch.
Now out there you might be wondering, wow, Rich and Fletch both look nice today. Wearing polo shirts, wearing hats.
Yeah.
What are they doing after the show? We going golfing, Richie.
Oh, we going golfing. Yeah, we got invited back to Steel Canyon for the Long Ball Hard Iced Tea Invitational. So we're going to be out there with some of our buddies from Long Ball and our very best friend, Tony Kanja from Keg and Bottle, 10 locations around San Diego. He's going to jump in the cart. He's going to bring some cures. He said that he was asking us if we wanted more. Tony, you do enough. We're
also going to a tournament catered by a drink company.
Yeah. There's going to be plenty of alcohol out there.
Now, are you at all surprised that Long Ball and Steel Canyon invited us back after our behavior at last year's Long Ball Invitational?
Yeah, I don't know how aware they were how off the rails that got.
They were, because they were part of it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I don't remember that. Here's what I do remember. I remember they had so many cool things set up on that course. They had a helicopter ball drop, a lottery to start the tournament. That happened last year. Also, I remember at one point, one of the holes on the course had B12 injections.
Yeah.
And so without hesitation, before I knew what was in the syringe, I was like, go for it. They're like, do you want me to tell you what's in there? I'm like, absolutely not.
No, I'll be honest, Rich, you and I have had our share of bad days on the golf course playing golf together. That was a pretty good one.
That was a good one.
You and I combined birdied 2 par 3s, and I think we need to outdo it this year.
I don't want to brag, but Steel Canyon is becoming like a home course for us.
I think so too.
So no big deal.
And rate of play, you got to know this course. Yeah, we got all those things. But in the world of sports, Richie, in the Olympics, Team USA beat Germany yesterday in basketball. Final tune-up before the Olympic Games. Final score was 92-88. It was another close call that was kind of sketchy down the final couple minutes. LeBron sort of put the team on his back. Team USA will open up group play in the Olympics in Paris on Sunday against Serbia. That'll be the group play. And so Serbia, South Sudan, and one other team is in their group. And then sticking with the Olympics, Snoop Dogg.
Well, what's crazy, hang on, before you get to Snoop Dogg, is they're going to rematch against South Sudan.
And Serbia.
They beat by 1 point. I mean, yeah, they survived this non-Olympic slate of games, this five game slate of games that they played leading into the Olympics. We'll see how it goes the second time around against some of these squads.
I was watching ESPN yesterday, and I can't remember who said it, but somebody had the perfect line. They said this was the most imperfect 5-0 Team USA could have gone on.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of issues that they had with a team like South Sudan, who had 2 guys who had ever stepped foot on an NBA court and played a total of 13 games. Like, that's who they were playing against. A G League team should have been able to beat South Sudan handedly. And so Team USA's like gold medal odds did drop after that game pretty dramatically from like -600 to -300. They've evened out since then to around -500, I think was this morning, after they beat Germany and after LeBron really had an excellent game yesterday. Germany, much tougher test than South Sudan was. And Germany has a couple NFL guys like Dennis Schroeder, or NBA guys like Dennis Schroeder, who and they won the FIBA World Cup last time around. So
Yeah.
Germany was a much tougher test. Team USA looked better, but the turnovers are still atrocious between Jason Tatum and Anthony Davis. I watched that whole game yesterday, and it was putrid at times. Like, they need to be better in the actual Olympics, or they will lose. And I don't know who it's going to be, but they could get knocked out potentially. And if this team gets knocked out, what's being called the deepest team in U.S. Olympic history, if they get knocked out, it's embarrassing.
I think this would be one of the biggest embarrassments in Olympic history. If this team, by the way, which has been prior to the Olympics, has been coined the greatest collection of basketball players the Olympics has ever seen. So they are trying to say that this collection of basketball players is better than the Dream Team. And who knows? Maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. I do know this. When the Dream Team came together, they absolutely mopped the floor with the field. That was when international basketball caught up with USA basketball, because we were putting out amateurs still and the rest of the countries were putting out their professionals. And so we said, if you're going to do it, we're going to do it. So we will put our NBA players on the floor and you'll see how good we are. And that set a precedent that from that point moving forward, the USA should never lose again. And they did. They lost to Spain. That was an embarrassment. I think that was the Sydney Olympics. Was that the Sydney Olympics?
Yeah, was that Pau Gasol?
I think it was
Pau Gasol on Team Spain.
And so I mean, there have been embarrassments since then, but the way this has been built up, the way people are talking about this team, if they do falter, if they don't come home with anything other than gold, silver or worse, this will be the biggest embarrassment in Olympics history, potentially for this country. I'm not saying for all countries, but for this country, because the field is so stacked in your favor. We could talk about it. Yeah. Like, other teams will have players, this is an international league right now. The NBA, we know what it is. Players, I mean, the first overall draft pick was from France again. This is how it goes these days. So I digress. The point being, if LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, who's injured but appears to be making the Olympic team and I assume is going to play, and Anthony Edwards and all of these superstars from the NBA can't get the job done, then something's gone horribly wrong.
So I've heard this argument a lot, Rich. Well, the rest of the world has caught up and there's superstars all over the planet now in terms of basketball. Well, yeah, other teams have 1 or 2 superstars. Team USA has 12 of them.
Yeah.
Like, how can this even be close games against a team like South Sudan, who doesn't have a superstar?
I was chatting with a buddy about this last night, and when I was talking to him, you do need.
Oh yeah, you were cheating on us again last night, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I didn't want to say it, and I knew you would go there. Look, Mike Harmon, he needed my help.
In the car at like 9:00, and all of a sudden, who do I hear? Rich Orberger talking with Mike Harmon, like, "Oh, I love you, buddy. You're so cute. Oh my god."
That's none of those words were stated. None of those words were stated. But when we were talking about Team USA, what he did say, because I said, look, in basketball, typically the best starting 5 wins. That's how it typically goes. In football, you have 11 guys on the field. One guy does something wrong. The whole thing's screwed. In baseball, you could have a great lineup. Every single guy in your starting 9 is hitting, and you just have a gas can on the mound. There's nothing you can do. It doesn't even matter if it's the starting pitcher. It could be your bullpen. He may sail through 7 innings. He gets to 8th, and then you hand the game over to a guy who's not ready. You could give up 10 runs, and we've seen it. So the point being, if this team doesn't congeal, if they don't conform, if they don't stop turning the ball over, if they don't stop treating these appointments like they're all-star games instead of actual international competitions, they could lose, and it would be an embarrassment. Okay, coming up next, could teams take a stand against wide receivers? We need to look at this from the perspective of the general managers. We'll do that with the help of Jonas Knox, Fox Sports Radio. You hear him every morning here on 2 Pros and a Cup of Joe. Excited to have him back on the program, friend of the show. But before we run, want to talk to you about My weight loss. It's been significant. It has been game-changing, life-changing. I lost 35 plus pounds with sdfatloss.com. A lot of people have been asking me how I lost the weight. I was home with some family members on the East Coast, and I was like, you could go to the website here. You can Zoom or FaceTime call with Wayne and Chloe. They'll give you the whole strategy. They'll send you some information. They'll get you started on the application, or they'll send you hard copies of the plan, whatever's best for you, and they will help you through the entire weight loss plan. And then after that, they have a plan for maintaining your weight. That's my favorite part about this. We're not just concentrating on the weight loss, and then it's like, okay, goodbye, like a lot of these fad diets. That's not how this works. You're losing weight the natural way, but you're also losing weight in a way that's sustainable. So you lose all the weight and then you sustain the weight loss. Okay, so I lost that 35 pounds. I lost 20 pounds in 14 days. So maybe you're on the beach and you're like, gosh, I've got about 20 pounds to lose, but it's already late July. It's no use starting the diet now. I'll get started next month. I'll get started next month. I'll get started next Monday. Everybody uses those excuses. Don't use that excuse. Go to SD Fat Loss today. And by week 2, you could potentially lose up to 15 pounds like I did, because that's exactly what happened. I didn't think that was possible, and it turns out it was. So sdfatloss.com, no injections, no weird shakes to drink, no meal plan or meal replacement, no counting calories, no counting points, no exercise. It's just good old-fashioned, a little gumption and a lot of help from your friends, Wayne and Chloe at sdfatloss.com. If you go to that website and sign up today, you'll save $200 on your subscription. So don't wait. Go to sdfatloss.com.
This update is presented by Staples Stores. Padres had the day off yesterday. Back at it today in our nation's capital, taking on the Washington Nationals. Randy Vasquez is going to be on the mound today as the Padres get it started. Team USA beat Germany in basketball yesterday in the final tune-up before the Olympic Games. Final score 92-88 in another close call. Team USA will open up group play in the Olympics this Sunday in Paris against Serbia. Sticking with the Olympics, Snoop Dogg carrying the torch during the opening ceremonies this Friday. With Staples Hot Deals, you'll find super low prices on hundreds of items for back to school. Right now, a 24-pack Crayola crayons and comp books are just 45 cents each at Staples. Plus, save even more with the Easy Rewards program. Ends 9/14. Prices valid in select stores. Limit 30. Save big on back to school at Staples.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. Hey, keep listening for your opportunity to win those Luke Bryan tickets. He's playing Chula Vista. It's going to be an August 8th show, so coming up quick. Details, seats available at Ticketmaster.com. A lot of news recently around quarterbacks in the NFL. No better man to break it all down with than Jonas Knox, 2 pros and a cup of Joe, Fox Sports Radio, friend of the show. Jonas, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. How the hell are you guys? Football's almost here. Aren't we excited or what?
Oh, my gosh, dude. We are days away from the Hall of Fame game. We are jonesing. Well, we're 39 days away from the kickoff of the actual season.
43 for NFL, 38 for college.
Gosh, I'm not going to be able to stand up for the rest of this interview after that. I can't. The blood's leaving my brain. So, Jonas, you do the talking for me. Jordan Love won't play a single snap for the Green Bay Packers until he gets a deal done. So, does he get a deal done, or does this get stupid?
It feels like they're really close because last week there was, or I think it might have been over the weekend, Friday or somewhere along those lines, but he got pulled away from a media session where somebody asked him about his contract and he kind of gave a smirk and just sort of I don't know, kind of one of those, and a PR person pulled him away and said, news to come soon on that. So it feels like they're kind of all on the same page and they're going to get a deal done quick. I just can't believe, Jordan Love is going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the history of the NFL based on how these contracts are. So what the Packers are telling you is, yes, for the third straight time, we found a franchise quarterback. Teams around the league have been waiting decades. The Bears, it's been like 1740 since they've had a franchise quarterback, and the Packers are going on 30 plus years of franchise quarterback play. It's pretty amazing.
It is stupid when you think about it, especially like my father-in-law is a diehard Packers fan, and Packers fans don't even know how good they get it because they all hate their own team.
It's it's almost like the Packers with quarterbacks and the Steelers with head coaches. They should just bottle that up and be like, this is how you do it. We'll find a guy, we'll just go with that, and he's either going to win a Super Bowl or be a Hall of Fame caliber player or coach, and that's just the way we operate. Meanwhile, other teams in the league are turning and burning coaches every other year. It's crazy.
It is ridiculous with the Packers and the Steelers. Jonas, ESPN had one of their lists, top 10 quarterback list, and the top 5 went Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, and Josh Allen. In some order, those were the 4. I know number 1 was Mahomes, but number 5 was Matthew Stafford. Do you put Matthew Stafford up in the ilk of the Mahomes, the Joe Burrows, the Lamar Jackson, and the Josh Allens, or should he be a little further down the list behind guys like Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers?
I have a hard time putting Matt Stafford ahead of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, and look, that's not like Stafford had a great year last year and it was a bounce back year, but I don't know if has he been a Pro Bowler before or an all pro? I look at it and I go, it feels like everybody acknowledges what the top is and everybody else is kind of falls into the mix of this, B class or tier 2 quarterback class. But I just have a hard time putting him ahead of a guy like Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you. I mean, that's also why I was surprised, not to go off on a tangent on another quarterback, but I was surprised why Minnesota didn't make a better effort to keep Kirk Cousins, because I know he was coming off the Achilles, but how many quarterbacks in the NFC can you say without a doubt better than Kirk Cousins? Like, it feels like the AFC is pretty loaded. The NFC is kind of a little bit up for grabs. And so to see Stafford kind of put it number 5, I guess you can make an argument because he's got the Super Bowl. I think there's some other quarterbacks I take beforehand.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The funny thing about quarterback play in the NFL is it's really 1 through 4, as long as you have the names Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, and Mahomes is top of the list. Any assortment of the other 3 that you want to make the argument for, I'll hear. But then after that, it gets really tricky to make that list because the opinions, a lot of them make sense. Like you made a great opinion for Rodgers. I've heard great opinions about Stafford too. It really, to me, you have a solidified 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league who you trust every single year are going to be there at the end. And then it's just a bunch of guys who are in that very large second tier jockeying for position as who will be the also-rans. And
right.
Maybe it's always been this way, but it feels like there's a thicker, darker line than ever now.
You know what my favorite argument too is when people go, like, for example, Tua. Like, oh, you can't give Tua that contract. You can't win a Super Bowl with Tua. Okay, well, I guess you couldn't win a Super Bowl with Dan Marino either, so he sucked. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, you don't know until you get there. Like, listen, there's a lot of people who look at Joe Flacco and go, it's just Joe Flacco. Won a Super Bowl, though. Like, you just, like, sometimes the ball bounces in your way or another, but to just go Super Bowl, and if you don't have a Super Bowl, you're not considered. It's like, man, like, things go your way or they don't go your way, but I don't think we should use that as the end-all, be-all of discussions about whether or not a guy deserves to be paid or deserves to have a team throw the kind of cash at him that they do.
Jonas, we got 3 superstar wide receivers all looking for a contract: CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Brandon Ayuk. And the Bengals GM comes out yesterday, or the president comes out yesterday and says, I don't think we're going to get something done before the start of the season. Brandon Ayuk is requested a trade. CeeDee Lamb, it's been a little more quiet with him. Which one of these 3, or do any of them, get a contract before the season begins?
I think it's CeeDee Lamb is the most likely. Brandon Ayuk, if he gets a contract, it ain't going to be from the Niners. And the only way that the Niners are parting with him is if they get a deal that they really like. I don't see the Niners budging on it. He's got to play on the $14 million deal in order to get it done. And I look at CeeDee Lamb and I go, yeah, that's the one that probably makes the most sense that would get done. Mike Brown, the president of the Bengals, has already said it doesn't feel like this year is the year. But if I'm, to be honest, if I'm Jamar Chase, I'm pissed because I look at my own draft class and I go, so wait a second, Jalen Waddle got a deal done. Devontae Smith got a deal done. Amon-Ra St. Brown got a deal done, yet I'm still sitting here playing for my rookie contract. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Jonas Knox joining us, Fox Sports Radio, 2 pros and a cup of Joe. The hardest working man. I hear his voice all over Fox Sports Radio. He is the key to that network, the linchpin. I think the lights go off for good if you get sick. Is that accurate? You don't even have PTO. You just stay on the air.
And no, I didn't see a lot of people want to point to that and say, well, you're a really hard worker. No, I just don't have a life. Like, there's nothing else to do. There's really nothing else to do. I played baseball with my son who's 3, and we had 2 sessions yesterday. And then after that, it's like I don't have any hobbies. Like I have to wake up at 1 in the morning. So it's not like I can get into a show and binge watch it because I got to go to bed so early.
I know for a fact, Jonas, that's not true. I heard you this morning talking about how much you love medieval times and you're taking LeVar and Brady to medieval times.
I didn't know it was still open. Like, I've never been to medieval times, but everybody tells me, oh, it's like they were trying to make a case for it. They're like, oh, it's $70 and you go there and you can eat with your hands and you can watch, people fight on horseback. I'm like, dude, you could just go to El Pollo Loco, get it to go, and then go watch Game of Thrones at home. It's the same thing. Like, and you would save about $60. So I didn't know it was still open, but if they want to go, we'll go. Why not?
Honestly, if you go to a Waffle House late enough, you're going to see a fight and have a meal, and you'll most likely eat with your hands.
Yes, that's a great point. Like, just go to one of these places, like a Chuck E. Cheese brawl, and you get everything you came for, and then you can walk out with a to-go bag.
That's a great point. This is a great point. You're saving yourself about $50 in the process. Yeah. Hey, Jonas, we appreciate you making the time every once in a while here. Definitely love to have your voice on the show. We'll do it again soon, brother.
Awesome. Love you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Love you too, pal. There he goes. Jonas Knox, 2 pros and a cup of Joe.
So we are just talking about Brandon Ayuk, and I get an update on my phone as soon as we're saying goodbye to Jonas. Jeff Darlington this morning on ESPN says the 49ers will not trade Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
Adam Schefter yesterday saying the 49ers want to get a long-term deal done with Ayuk. We'll see.
Okay, let's break that down coming up next. And also, at 30 years old, has he found the fountain of youth? We'll discuss next.
Hey, Richie, you want $1,000?
I really do. I really do.
You keep listening, pal, because coming up at the top of the hour, your first chance of the day to win $1,000 here on San Diego Sports 760. Just listen for the keyword, head over to sportssd.com, enter it there. Next chance to win coming up in 15 minutes.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. Luke Bryan tickets coming up on the show. Derrick Henry, a topic of conversation this offseason, especially for folks out in Baltimore. If you missed it, he was one of these random free agent signings that occurred this offseason. Like Odell Beckham Jr. is playing for the Miami Dolphins this upcoming season.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. There's a couple of these. Like, they're going to sneak up on you.
What I did last week, and you weren't here to correct me right away, so it just stayed there until I saw it on the text line an hour later. I was talking about Mike Vrabel as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Completely forgetting that he's not there anymore.
He's out of a job altogether.
No, he's working with the Browns now as an offensive special consultant somewhere way down on the totem pole.
So that's actually funny. So that's what happens is you have friends, obviously, when you're a coach in the NFL. And if you're a big enough name, you will have a buddy throw you on their staff as a consultant or like a special assistant. Like, for example, Brandon Staley loses his job as the head coach of the Chargers. So who is he a defensive specialist with?
And assistant head coach.
San
Francisco 49ers. We're going to suck.
No. Brandon Staley is a smart defensive coordinator. He just was not a good head coach. And by the way, there's a lot of excuses that you can make and a lot of reasoning why you could say that the Chargers had struggles, but he was a part of that problem. Anyways, I digress. Get back to the Baltimore Ravens, another one of these weird off-season free agent signings that when everybody's drafting their fantasy rosters, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that guy plays for them now? Well, so yeah, he's no longer a Titan. He's a Raven. And Lamar Jackson has a bulldozer in the backfield if he's healthy and can perform the way he has when he's been healthy and performing well. Derrick Henry is one of the more dominant, scary running backs to face in the fourth quarter over the course of the past decade. The problem is when he's injured, he's completely ineffective.
We saw it last year. It felt like the decline sort of started, like he was missing a step almost. It was like Derrick Henry's speed was the underrated part of his game because everyone sees the physicality. Everyone sees how it's really tough to tackle him, especially near the line of scrimmage. Like he can just get those extra 2 or 3 yards. But the almost losing a step a year ago and being that much slower made him that much easier to tackle. And you saw it in the numbers. His yards per carry numbers were declining. His attempts per game were declining as the Titans realized what was going on. And so I'm really curious to see how the Ravens use him this year, because in terms of fantasy football, he could still be extremely viable, especially if they're using him in short yardage situations near the end zone, which is kind of how I picture it going. Like we hear that, oh, well, the Chargers took all the Ravens running backs because now they do have Gus Edwards. And who's the guy that's always hurt? J.K. Dobbins. They got both of those guys from the Ravens, but the Ravens still have Keaton Mitchell, who was a rookie a year ago, who's going to start the season injured, I believe, but is a stud. And they still have Justice Hill, who had some really nice games down the stretch of last season. And they have Lamar Jackson, by the way, who's kind of a running back from the quarterback position. I'm so curious to see how Derrick Henry's used this year. Have you thought about it at all and put together how you would use him?
Yeah, well, so I think I would just this is going to sound crazy because I know how people feel about injury prone players or how they feel about, oh, like we got to, load management is the topic du jour over the past decade in all sports, and it happens in the NFL. You don't realize it, but when you limit somebody's reps, whether it be during a game or over the course of a practice week, you don't see how much football players load management would be because you're not at practice every day or you're not a part of the conversations pregame. But sometimes guys are on a snap count. Sometimes guys it's like, look, we're going to give Derrick 10 snaps and that's it. I wouldn't do that. I think he's at his best when he's getting all the reps. I think he's a 15 carry type of running back, 17 carries, 20 carries. So I'm not going to break his stride because we're worried about injury. That's not a strategy I think will work. You're not going to get the most effective version of Derrick Henry. So personally, I would run him until the wheels come off. I would use him like the Tennessee Titans used him. Now, like you mentioned, Lamar Jackson takes some of the onus off of him with some of that dual read, option zone stuff that they'll run from the quarterback position because he is such a running threat. But Derrick Henry, if he's a bruiser up the middle with that speed, that trademark speed that he's played with when he breaks away from the line of scrimmage, and obviously Lamar Jackson is one of the more elusive runners in the NFL, do that until you can't do it anymore. Until he gets hurt. You have Keaton Mitchell, who's coming off an injured season, like you mentioned, but he comes back into the fold. He was dynamite last year. You only really need one solid running back in that offense for for that offense to work because Lamar Jackson's such a running threat.
I think the Ravens are going to be scary this year. I think Derrick Henry is a huge addition for them, depending on how they use him, whether it's like you said, run him into the ground, which I probably wouldn't do, to be honest, Rich. I'd probably use him more as it's a 3rd and short and we need Derrick Henry. Bring him in. Jerome Bettis, old age, guy.
I just don't think he's going to be as effective in that role because we've seen when you try to limit him, I don't think his head's in the game. I think there's certain players you can do that with. There's absolutely players who are specialists who can come in and be like a Jerome Bettis toward the end of his career. We'll see. Maybe he can transition into that. And I actually really do think that the Ravens will probably lean more your way than my way. But I just look at Derrick Henry as being one of those bell cows you got to feed. Like you absolutely got to feed him to keep him in the game. All right, coming up next, we're going to start breaking down divisions again. We got away from this, but the preseason is here. We only have 43 more games until kickoff of the NFL season. So we're going to hustle up and do 2 divisions in the AFC coming up next. But before we run, I got to talk to you about the Good Feet store. We're about to hit the golf course today. We got invited to Steel Canyon and play at the Long Ball Invitational. Looking forward to doing that. I'm going to be wearing my arch supports from the Good Feet store the whole time. Why? Well, it's because if I don't, when I come home from the golf course, my back's going to be sore. I'm gonna be walking the course. Trust me, because I'm going to be searching for balls in the woods. It happens every time. So I'm going to be logging some steps today. And if I don't wear those arch supports from the Good Feet store, I'll pay for it. My feet will hurt. My ankles will hurt. My knees. I've had hip problems in the past. I mean, after a 6-year NFL career, my body was a mess, and I needed some help with some of these orthopedic issues that I was facing, and I didn't want to go and get surgery again. So I went to the Good Feet store, and it's really been a game changer for me. It can be for you as well. All you got to do is go to goodfeet.com, find the store nearest you, and they'll steer you in the right direction. They'll get these arch supports on your feet, and you could be living pain-free as well. That's the Good Feet store. Check them out at goodfeet.com.
Hour number 2, Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. This update presented by Evans Tire and Service. Walk in or book online at evanstire.com. Padres had the day off yesterday. Back at it today in our nation's capital. Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Friars as they take on the Nationals for a 3-game series. Team USA took down Germany yesterday in basketball. Final tune-up before the Olympic Games. Final score yesterday, 92-88. In another close call, Team USA will open up Olympic play this Sunday in Paris in group play against Serbia. Sticking with the Olympics, Snoop Dogg going to be carrying out a torch during the opening ceremonies this Friday. Now at Evans Tire and Service Centers, buy 3 Kumo Solus TA51 tires and get 1 for free. Optional 6-month deferred financing available with the Evans Tire credit card. Walk in or dial pound 250, keyword Evans Tire. Schedule now.
It's Big Rich, TD, and Fletch on San Diego Sports 760.
The reality of the situation is Dak Prescott, do you trust him in the postseason more than you trust Brock Purdy? My answer is no.
Hell no.
I think
Look at his career postseason record. Is he like 2-5?
I believe that's correct.
No, the answer is no. Also, if this list had anything to do with statistics, Brock Purdy would be on the list, and he'd probably be number 2. He had the best stats in the NFL last year.
However, I would look,
which that would also be ridiculous. That's why I'm saying that Brock Purdy being left off the list actually makes more sense to me than Matthew Stafford being at number 5.
Now, here are the guys.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch, happy Tuesday to those who celebrate incoming football seasons, and I do mean seasons, are coming up. Kickoff 38 days away for the San Diego State Aztecs. You're going to see the new Sean Lewis-led Aztecs take the field against A&M Commerce. Texas A&M Commerce is coming into Snapdragon Stadium. And then, of course, we're 43 days away from kickoff in the NFL. That's the Thursday nighter, the rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. We were just talking about the Ravens, their running back room. They add Derrick Henry. They lose some others. The Chargers basically scooped up all of their running backs. They were just like, well, no, listen, but this is what we want. And Greg Roman is working with Jim Harbaugh in LA, so it makes sense. He was a former offensive coordinator with the Ravens.
Now, Richie, I don't know if you've noticed, but we haven't heard from TD in a while.
That's right.
It was like he was stuck in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I don't know if he ever made it to New York.
So we probably should text him. Actually, don't text him. Don't text him. Let him text first. I'm always wary of texting people on vacation. I'm always wary about texting people I work with while I'm on vacation because I kind of feel like that's the whole point of vacation is to get away from us.
Right. But TD doesn't want to not hear from us.
No, I know that, but he needs this more than... I know
he needs this.
Yeah, he needs it more than... We need to be what he needs for us to be, which is we have to lay our foot off the throttle and give him and Sarah time and space to reconnect.
Yes, good point. I just am worried about him because TD doesn't really like the whole travel thing in the first place. Airports are a disaster right now all over the country. I'm a little worried about our guy.
Let me tell you right now, he is listening to us as we speak. Text incoming, and it's going to be him wandering around with like the greatest cup of coffee, like the movie Elf. He'll be like, I can't believe this. You guys have done it. Congratulations. You made the greatest cup of coffee.
Yeah, you're probably right. We don't need to worry about him.
What we do need to worry about is, as I mentioned, with these football seasons quickly approaching, we are running out of time to break down each of these divisions. We're trying to get across all of these 16 divisions in the NFL. And so we're going to go through 2 more. We got the AFC South. Later on, we'll break down the AFC North. Very different divisions in the same conference. So let's do it. You got the Titans, who they're sticking with Big Willie Levis.
Did the video help?
The video? Oh, you mean the leaked video?
The video. I mean, I know it helped his standing within the Tennessee Titans fan base because for a week and a half afterwards, it was "That's my quarterback." # Will has a cannon.
Yeah. It helped.
I think it did too.
Let me tell you something. Boy, oh boy. He's gifted. Let's leave it right there. The guy's got some gifts, and those are God-given gifts.
So he did have the game last year where I think it was his first full starting game. He had like 350 yards passing, a couple touchdowns to DeAndre Hopkins. He looked really good. It did taper off towards the end of the season as people got film on Will Levis, and we understand how that goes. What are his prospects for this year? Does he have the juice to be a quarterback in this league, even though he fell so far down the draft board?
Look, Will Levis I think he can play in the NFL. I don't know if he can be a full-time starter yet. But you could say that about a lot of quarterbacks. I mean, there were huge question marks about Josh Allen his rookie season with the Buffalo Bills. He didn't play particularly well. If you go back and revisit the stats, but also the film, he didn't look like the Josh Allen he became. It was a build. Every year a little bit better than the last. Showed a little regression, honestly, last season, but fixed it toward the end of the year. It is possible that Will Levis can play himself into a very competent starting quarterback. But you're absolutely right. It was a little bit hot and cold for the Tennessee Titans, and they get restarted with, I'm blanking on his name, but his former offensive coordinator, the head coach for the Tennessee Titans now, was former offensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bengals. And him working with Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow.
Brian Callahan.
Thank you, Brian Callahan. Him working with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. You know that he's going to bring some of the trade secrets that they used with Joe Burrow to groom him into a competent starting quarterback very quickly, by the way, who also had a rough start. His rookie season, he blew up his knee. He looked promising at times, but it was shortened, and they were able to get him up to speed quickly. So we'll see what happens with Levis in Tennessee.
Titans also going in this year with 2 new pieces. You were just talking about Derrick Henry as the guy who you're going to be like, oh, yeah, he's on the Ravens when you get to your fantasy football draft.
Yeah.
Titans went out and got Calvin Ridley. Titans went out and got Tony Pollard. So they got some pieces that they've added to this team, and they also held on to DeAndre Hopkins. Treylon Burks this is going to be his 3rd year as a wide receiver. A lot of promise for him. Remember when they drafted him, it was kind of to replace A.J. Brown because they're both real big wide receivers. Treylon Burks, we'll see what he does in year 3 or potentially year 2. Can't really remember. But they got pieces, and it's all going to be whether or not Will Levis can make it work. Now, they also have Mason Rudolph and Malik Willis behind him. They drafted Malik Willis a couple years ago. Never really worked out. Mason Rudolph with the Steelers had issues there as well. So we'll see this year. They got options.
Back-to-back second-round picks to try to replace Tannehill. Both Willis and Levis have not really worked out yet. We'll see what happens. Mason Rudolph was competent for the Steelers coming in. Wasn't great, but competent. So at very least, they know they have a competent backup. We'll see what happens next. The Jags just broke off their franchise quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, now one of the highest paid men in the NFL. Look, here's the funny thing about Trevor Lawrence. He's kind of interchangeable with a lot of these second-tier quarterbacks. Like, I probably would want a CJ Stroud over a Trevor Lawrence at this point. They're kind of interchangeable, but I think I would trust a CJ Stroud maybe a little bit more. I don't know. Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles, Dak Prescott. This is the group he resides in until we see better playoff success. Now, I don't think the team that has been built around Trevor Lawrence has really been exemplified all of his talents the way he looked like when he was in Clemson, surrounded by monsters. He had a great offensive line. He had great offensive weapons to throw to. Dabo Swinney was his head coach, great head coach in college football. It hasn't really gelled yet for him. Although I will say this, Peterson, I believe, was a big part of the discussion whether or not they were going to extend Trevor Lawrence. And if he believes in him, I believe in him because I believe in Doug Peterson.
It does just feel like we're waiting for Trevor Lawrence to be the guy that we were promised when he was going into the draft, right?
A can't miss first overall draft pick.
The best prospect since Andrew Luck, like best prospect since John Elway. Like people said, really, really high praises about Trevor Lawrence. And we'll see this year going in. He has running back Travis Etienne, who was phenomenal a year ago, was injured a lot his first year. The wide receiver room got weaker. They had Calvin Ridley. They're down to just Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and then a bunch of guys you don't really know about. Devin Duvernay is the only name that I really recognize on the list other than those 2 guys. Tight end, Evan Ingram, he's a stud when he's good, and he's really bad when he's bad. So we'll see about the Jags. I don't have a ton of faith in them to win the division this year. I don't know about you.
No, I don't, especially because of the next 2 teams that we're going to mention here, and that's the Colts and the Texans. We'll start with the Colts, who get Anthony Richardson back, the 3rd overall draft pick from a year ago, who, when healthy and available, shined in his starts, but it was only like 3 or 4 starts, and he was injured parts of 2 other games. It was a really bad showing for the Indianapolis Colts because they couldn't find a way to keep him healthy, whether it be on his own volition because he refused to slide, he wasn't protecting himself well enough, or because the play calling led him to being in more of those collisions that led to his injuries. He had an upper body injury. I'm pretty sure he had a concussion at one point. He had an ankle injury at one point in the season. They finally shut him down. And so Anthony Richardson returns and with a lot of expectation and a lot of potential, but automatically he has this injury prone designation put on him. So we're going to need him for 17 games, or need to see him for 17 games before anybody can really trust that he is the future of this franchise.
So the Colts a year ago had Gardner Minshew as a backup. He came in and played really well for the Colts towards the end of the season. You know who their backup quarterback is this year?
For the Colts,
he's elite. That's the hint.
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco is the backup quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts heading into the year. A huge year for Jonathan Taylor, the running back, who is a stud. He held out last year at the beginning of the season, got his contract. This is a massive year for him. And then Michael Pittman Jr., who we've always been waiting on him to have that breakout. It started last year with Gardner Minshew. He had a really nice second half of the season. We'll see if Michael Pittman can expand on it. I do like the Colts this year.
I like the Colts too. And again, the same way I was talking about the Jags and their head coach, I really do like Shane Steichen also.
Same.
Shane Steichen, brilliant offensive-minded coach. I actually worked with him here in San Diego. He was with the Chargers staff for a time, followed Frank Reich to Philadelphia. And when Frank Reich moved on to the Colts, or he stayed back in Philadelphia and was the offensive coordinator that helped lead the Philadelphia Eagles to the Super Bowl, which they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. He earns his job with the Indianapolis Colts last year. I think he did a phenomenal job as a rookie head coach, especially breaking in a rookie quarterback. So we'll see how it looks with Richardson this year. I think they got an insurance policy with Flacco. Flack. It should work out for the Colts. Moving on to the Houston Texans.
Where did that come from?
Because I said insurance policy and Flacco. It just, I don't know. The Houston Texans with CJ Stroud. How are they going to look this season?
Flack. I love the Houston Texans, and I love CJ Stroud. Probably my favorite young quarterback in the league. CJ Stroud a year ago made your boy a lot of money on Prize Picks. Let's put it that way. And CJ Stroud, I believe, will continue to do so this year. I know that there's talks about a sophomore slump, and Rich, I've heard you say it like as a potential for CJ Stroud. I don't see it coming. In fact, if you were to tell me right now to put money down on MVP of 2024, I might have already done this. Crap. And I think I said someone else. I would say CJ Stroud.
Yeah. Yeah. CJ Stroud is one of those guys who I feel like we've seen before. Now, it's either going to be Lamar Jackson-esque, where we're like, whoa, like this guy is that good.
Damn it. I said Joe Burrow like a week ago.
You did, didn't you? You son of a. I feel like CJ Stroud could either end up like Lamar Jackson, and we'll say it's real. What we saw his rookie year is 100% real. He is going to anchor this franchise for years to come, as long as he stays healthy. I look at though a guy like Robert Griffin III, and look, he wasn't the same quarterback in year two, and certainly wasn't the same after an injury. I look at a guy like what's his name? Oh, Carson Wentz. I mean, Carson Wentz early in his career looked incredible, and all it took was one knee injury and watching Nick Foles win a Super Bowl for his team, and it changed him forever. So
what do you think was bigger for Carson Wentz? Was it the injury, or was it watching his team go on and win a Super Bowl in a year that, by the way, before he got injured, he was favored to win the MVP?
Yeah, he was incredible that season. I think the injury had a lot to do with it, but I also think that, like starting pitcher, I think quarterback in the NFL is a very mental position. And I do think that confidence was shaken there. And I don't know if he's fully aware of how much it was. I don't think you're capable. I think your brain protects you from certain things. But when you watch somebody else lead your team to arguably one of the most impressive Super Bowl wins, because remember, that was Tom Brady that Nick Foles was dueling against. Tom Brady threw for over 500 yards. And they still won. And the Philly special was called by Nick Foles. Like, he is a folk hero in Philadelphia. Carson Wentz isn't. People barely remember that he played that season because Nick Foles was the Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz now is just bounced around the league as a backup. Currently, he's with the Kansas City Chiefs as Patrick Mahomes' backup.
So for every Lamar Jackson, there's been handfuls over the past decade or so. There have been Robert Griffin III's, which is an older example now. There have been Carson Wentz's that you can look back on and say, yeah, wow, out the gates, it looked great. But here's the thing I do love. I love the leadership with the Houston Texans. I'm a believer in DeMeco Ryans. I think that guy is a spirited, personality-led or driven players coach, and I think it's going to benefit them. I think the Houston Texans will win this division. I don't think it will be particularly close.
You're going to hate me for even bringing this up, but if D'Amico Ryans was the 49ers defensive coordinator a year ago instead of Steve Wilkes, I say they win the Super Bowl. Would you agree?
Ooh. Okay, look, that Chiefs defense did some things now.
To Chris Jones was the MVP of that game. I know
agree.
Everyone says Patrick Mahomes, and he won it, and probably rightfully so. But Chris Jones was the person who had the biggest impact on that game.
I don't think that the defensive coordinator who was manning the sidelines had as big of an impact as their injury at linebacker.
Yeah,
that was the thing that killed the 49ers.
I can still picture it in my head.
Yeah, if what's his name didn't blow his Achilles as he was trying to get on the field. It was oh gosh,
Dre Greenlaw.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Dre
Greenlaw. And it was the moment, man, he was going to celebrate a play by the 49ers offense because the defense was coming back on the field.
Yeah.
And he takes one big jump and Fred Warner's 2 steps ahead of him. And you could tell he said something probably F. And Fred Warner turns around and just immediately drops to his knees. I will remember that moment forever.
Oh yeah, he knew as soon as it happened. He was like, "Well, my day is done."
Because then all of a sudden, Fred Warner wasn't just sticking to one side of the field; he was having to cover both sides, leaving Travis Kelce to have the monster second half.
Well, I'm
over it. I promise.
The plan definitely had to change. There's no question about it. It's what happens though when you have injuries, and you have to overcome those injuries to be champions. The Chiefs have done that in the past. Look, the Chiefs, in my mind, even with what Vegas is telling you, are still the Super Bowl favorite. I know that they're not favored to win the Super Bowl right now preseason, but this team has so much experience, so many good players, and they have the best player on the football field right now, which is Patrick Mahomes.
And somehow they drafted the next fastest rookie in the NFL. Xavier Worthy.
That did happen.
They traded up to get him. So AFC South Division winner.
I'm saying the Houston Texans.
Okay.
And I'm saying it's not particularly close. I could see them having a 2-game lead on the rest of the division.
You can make an argument for the Colts if everyone stays healthy and if people progress the way we expect them to, but I would also say Houston Texans, especially because in week 8, the monster known as J.J. Watt is probably going to return to the team. And messed up in the second half of the season.
It's possible. Hey, coming up, we got Luke Bryan tickets for you to win. That's Luke Bryan playing August 8th. North Island Credit Union Amphitheater. That's going to be a Chula Vista show. Deets and seats at Ticketmaster.com, or keep listening for your ways to win. But first, we got to do this. I got to go in first. Okay, Fletch, you're next because battery life and cell phones. I still don't know how this is a problem. We've been using cell phones since, I guess, the late 80s now. I don't really remember them as a kid growing up in the 90s, but they were around. Mobile telephones. The technology has advanced so far to the point where you have a supercomputer, something that is more advanced in the palm of your hand than the entirety of the operating system on the space shuttles that landed on the moon in the 60s. Like, it's an incredible piece of technology. They have not spent enough time with these batteries. I can't tell you how many times this happened. And I have, this is not, I'm not trying to flex on anybody. I have the newest iPhone. This thing dies on me in the middle of text messages, in the middle of emails constantly. I mean, I'm on my phone a lot. Our line of work, we're on our phone a lot. We use our phones a lot. But my goodness, could we get this problem solved? Like, anybody who is out there who's listening to the sound of my voice, who's in sales or is on calls all the time or uses data on their phone to search things or whatever, it drives me crazy because I'm not always in the car. I'm not always near a charger, and it happens constantly.
Now,
end of rant. Sorry.
Is it possible, Richie, there's some user error involved here? Like, do you plug it in at night and get a full charge for the next day?
Every single night. Every single night. And I
really don't have this issue. My iPhone's a couple generations older, and I don't have this issue at all.
I'm rocking and rolling at a 100% when I walk out of the house in the morning. And I'm not kidding you. By the end of our show, I'm sure I'll be looking at like a 50% battery. I'm already down a quarter. It's 7 o'clock. I woke up at 4. How is this possible, Apple? Fix it, or I'll fix you.
Imagine going on this rant 15 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, these are like first world problems. Like, I'm not talking about anything serious, but I mean, I'm this close. You remember, I forget what cell phone brand it was, But I remember when you actually could replace your batteries.
Oh yeah,
You could take the back of the phone off. And
I used to have one of those phones that slid up and sideways.
Oh yeah,
and I think I had 3 backups for that bad boy.
So you could buy a separate battery you could charge them both. Like if you could charge one in an old phone and then plug it into your new phone, whatever. If there is a way to fix this problem, somebody come to me with it, because it is driving me insane. End of rant. That's it. What do you got, Fletch?
Oh, I know the next present I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you one of those phone cases that charges your phone while it's in the case.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, they're a thing. They're bulky though. I don't know if you'd like it that much.
Well, I mean,
also the
bulky
new trucks. I know if you were going to go get one, have wireless chargers on the.
Those things always seem like such a good idea in theory. I drove a rental car that had one when it was either when we were in Hawaii or when we were in Connecticut, and I put the thing down on it, didn't charge it at all. Dude, maybe it's something, it could be user error. I'll blame myself for now, but maybe there's something wrong with this specific phone. Either way, not pleased.
Well, we'll get it fixed for you. My morning monologue revolves around Team USA basketball.
All right.
Can we stop playing around, guys? Like, seriously, I watched that entire game yesterday, which is more, I can honestly say, than I watched of any regular season NBA game this year. But the problems that I have in my head about regular season NBA is the same problems that I saw yesterday. They don't take it seriously enough. I will give LeBron James a lot of credit for yesterday, and that's something I rarely do. But there was a time in the fourth quarter where that game was way too close for comfort. And in fact, Team USA got down at one point in the fourth quarter, and LeBron had his screw this moment. He's like, ball is mine. I'm going to the hoop. Nobody else get around me. And he was awesome. He was dominant. And we saw that from Jaden Ledee a couple times this year, like when they were playing against San Jose State. And he just said, screw this. This game is mine. I'm going to go win it for us because nobody else is doing it. And LeBron did that yesterday. Anthony Davis and Jason Tatum need to sit on the bench. Every single time those two guys touch the ball, it is a thrown away pass. And if these guys don't win the gold, I'm just going to say it. They don't like America. And screw you.
I don't think that's true.
Look, okay, you know me, Richie. College basketball is one of my biggest passions in this life. I love college basketball.
I know this very much so because we'll be in the middle of the college basketball season, like 15 games in, and I'll get a text from Fletch. And I know I've said this before, but he'll be like, are you guys watching this St. Mary's UMass game? I mean, the Minutemen are like within 2 points of having one of the biggest upsets in basketball history. Like, you need to turn on ESPN 10.
Maybe not that dramatic, but I do love college basketball.
But you haven't sent text messages like that?
No, I have. But the NBA product has just been so diluted over the last few years, and I'm starting to see it trickle into this, which is something I do care about. Like Team USA, I care about you going out and showing the world that we're better than everyone else, because we are. You have a collection of superstars that no one can hold a candle to. If they don't go win gold, man, I might be done with professional basketball forever.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's a lot of people who've been very turned off by professional basketball. The NBA, the dilution of the amount of games they play, plus the fact that a lot of stars sit out a large majority of the season just because they can.
And we can be frank, their politics kind of suck.
Well, in terms
of a lot of people. Like, I am one of those people, but where the NBA gets a majority of their money from, not here in the United States, a lot of people don't like that. And I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, like there is a big push for them to be enormous in China. And yeah, there's a lot of people who feel pretty dirty about what the NBA is doing and how exploitive it feels. And I get it. Here's the problem for the NBA is you have distanced yourself so much from your domestic fans that I think they've hit a point of no return. I think they have to continue to lean in to improving international basketball and interest in basketball internationally, because they're losing people in droves to the NFL, which definitely has more of a domestic feel. I will caution the NFL, though. The more games you take overseas, the more Sao Paulo kickoffs and the more Europe kickoffs you have, the more you're going to make American fans feel the same way they feel about the NBA. It'll take time. It could be a decade. It could be 2 decades. But if you keep doing this to your fans in the United States, eventually you'll hit a point of diminishing returns in the U.S. It better mean that you're making the money back overseas, like it appears the NBA is. So yeah, I get it. I get that
Because there
argument.
are more people like Travis Dale than there are like me who don't want to wake up early to watch an NFL game on a Sunday. I'm fine with it. I kind of like it, but we'll see. You know what's funny, Rich? We got more interaction on your phone battery problems than anything else so far on this show.
Oh yeah, it drives me crazy.
Rich O needs to go see an Apple Genius. Low battery mode, Rich. I would hesitate buying anything long term that has phone charging capabilities like a vehicle. These greedy phone companies always change charger options to maximize profits. And then on YouTube, Rich, go to your settings
Yeah.
and figure out your battery health. Something is up.
Okay. Yeah. Those are two really good ideas. I don't know. Look, here's what I will say. I have had this problem in the past, so it may just be me, or it could be the phone. But I don't think it's unique to me. Look, if anybody out there, those are great pieces of advice, but I'm almost looking more for commiseration. Like I'm looking for somebody just to whine with me for a second. So if you have these problems with your phone battery, I'd love to hear from
Do
you
you
too.
get those notifications on Sundays? How often you're on your phone?
Yeah.
So mine's at like 8 hours a day, which is kind of sickening when I think
wonder
about
what
it.
mine is
But
now.
I don't have this problem.
Okay, let me see. My usage, you can go into your settings and see it pretty quick.
But I also live on low battery mode, so maybe that's just me.
You have to go to general.
No, if you go settings and scroll down a little bit, there's battery, and I'm always on low battery mode.
Okay, you're always on low battery
Yeah,
mode?
I'm never not on low battery mode.
Oh my gosh. My screen active time is 9 hours and 48 minutes.
Per day?
I don't know. It just says screen active, screen idle. So my phone, oh, this is over the past 24 hours. So my phone was active for almost 10 hours.
No,
Or
only
the
4
last
hours
12
and 20 minutes. Blaze up, homies.
Wow, Jesus. How do you even manage
Well,
that?
I've been pretty busy. I got a dog that's trying to die on me, so I'm like really working my ass off here.
Which, by the way, so you're dog sitting and you, so I'm not going to tell the whole story, but basically the dog needed some sort of medical intervention and it's not going well now.
I honestly don't know, Rich. Like, I took the dog to the vet on Friday, spent a ton of time there, took the dog back to the vet on Saturday so she could get surgery. This isn't my dog, by the way. I'm dog sitting this dog. And then this morning, like everything was going great until this morning. I wake up at 4:15 or so and get in the shower, start my day, take all the dogs out, was ready to come into work. I walk out into the living room. The dog is not there. She's in a different part of the house that I don't even know how she got to. There is poop everywhere.
Oh boy.
Like, and I took that dog out right before bed and she handled her business. And this wasn't exactly solid poop, if you know what I mean. So I spent 30 minutes cleaning it up this morning and she's not herself right now.
Okay. So check it out. You got to get a new dog and replace the old dog.
This dog weighs 115 pounds.
Swap it out like goldfish. Nobody will notice.
I don't think that's the case.
You're going to have to do it because I refuse to let you have the dog owners come home to a dead dog.
I just gotta last till Thursday, man.
So
just gotta last till Thursday.
But I'm saying prepare for the worst. So right now, start shopping the same breed, same size about, and just pretend.
Rich, she's 115 pounds and like 12 years old. I don't know that another dog exists that is this breed, that is that weight, that is that size, that is that age.
Look, you can't say I didn't give you advice. Swap it out like a goldfish. All right, guys. Coming up next, we continue our divisional breakdown in the NFL. We're 43 days away from the kickoff of the NFL season. AFC North is up next. Big Rich, TD, and Fletch.
This update is presented by Discover. We will begin here with the Padres. They had the day off yesterday. Back at it today in Washington, D.C. Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Friars as they take on the Nationals for a 3-game series. Team USA beat Germany in basketball yesterday. Final tune-up before the Olympic Games. Team USA will open up Olympic play this Sunday in Paris against Serbia. And sticking with the Olympics, Snoop Dogg selected to carry out a torch during the opening ceremonies. He will also be part of NBC's broadcast. Time with family, laughs, and friends, and cash back. Discover's got you covered on the last one. That's because Discover doubles all the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with cash back match. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
Luke Bryan tickets inbound. We are giving them away before the end of the 7 o'clock hour. So if you're just joining us for the first time this morning, welcome in. If you've been hanging, keep hanging longer. If you want to go see Luke Bryan in Chula Vista, this hour we give away those Luke Bryan tickets. We start our conversation in the AFC North where we left off with the Ravens. So we were discussing Derrick Henry a little bit earlier on. John Harbaugh has insanely high expectations for his quarterback, Lamar Jackson. And we'll break down the rest of the teams. Maybe we'll spend less time on the Ravens because we spoke at length about Derrick Henry and his impact on this offense earlier. John Harbaugh, two things that are through lines throughout his entire career as head coach of the Ravens: great defenses and running offenses. He likes to possess the football. He likes to play great and stingy defense. Reminds you a lot of the Steelers with Mike Tomlin, two guys who are cut from the same cloth. Do you believe in the Ravens this season with Lamar Jackson and some of the playoff flaws? Do you believe in the Ravens with some of the changes they've made around the offense? Do you believe in the Ravens, especially with the lofty expectations that their head coach just placed on their starting quarterback?
So John Harbaugh, yes. John Harbaugh yesterday or the day before was speaking at training camp, and essentially it was a 2.5-minute soundbite where he was praising Lamar Jackson and talking about the noise, about playoff criticisms about Lamar Jackson. And John Harbaugh said, our vision for Lamar is for him to become the greatest quarterback of all time. And he said that's also Lamar's vision for himself, is for him to become the greatest quarterback of all time. Clearly a long way to go and about 8 Super Bowls left to go for him to get there because the guy who currently holds it has 7 of them. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens this year, I view as one of 2 options who can take down the Chiefs, the other one being the Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC. I don't know that either of them can actually do it. But Lamar Jackson, if he continues to improve and continues to learn from mistakes that he and really the whole coaching staff of the Ravens made during that game against the Chiefs in the postseason a year ago, I don't see a reason why this Ravens team, who is loaded for war, can't go win a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, except one very big problem resides in the same conference, and his name's Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And I would say that about any AFC team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl outside of the Chiefs, because the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes on their roster. Lucky them. It's going to be difficult. But in the same division, the Bengals exist also, which Joe Burrow poses the same problems that Patrick Mahomes does, maybe at a slightly lesser level, but when healthy, Joe Burrow is one of the top quarterbacks in this league. So he's back from a wrist surgery. He seems confident. He's throwing the football well per reports out of training camp. There are some issues with getting receivers paid, but it looks like the gang's going to be back together in Cincinnati. The belief you have in the Cincinnati Bengals, is it much higher than last year preseason, or is it lower because of the injury history of Joe Burrow?
I thought the Bengals were going to be great last year. And look, they probably would have been had Joe Burrow not gotten hurt. Unfortunately, so much relies on him. And unfortunately, he is injury prone. Like, I think we have enough proof now to say that. You mentioned it 2 weeks ago, Rich. In seasons where Joe Burrow finishes the season healthy, they're in the AFC Championship game. And guess what? It's happened once. Or they're in the Super Bowl. Sorry.
No, it's happened. So they've played in an AFC Championship game, lost to the Chiefs, and then they played in a Super Bowl, lost to the Rams.
That's right.
And those were of the 4 years, those were the 2 healthy years for Burrow.
And it's been every other year, so maybe this is the other year, right? And Joe Burrow, I think, is a stud. I think he's fantastic. The wide receiver room with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I think, is fantastic. The running back room could use a little work this year. Zach Moss going in as their RB1. Of course, Joe Mixon now with the Houston Texans. Like, the Bengals did not get better personnel-wise this offseason, but they do have Joe Burrow coming back. So they got light years better than when they were going at it with Jake Browning and his girlfriend in a ski suit a year ago, even though that was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Look, my feeling on the Cincinnati Bengals is similar to my feeling on the Ravens. You're going to go as far as your quarterback takes you. Look, this league gets pretty simple when you start talking about it in terms of head coach and quarterback, which brings us to the Steelers. Mike Tomlin, in my opinion, is the finest head coach who's coaching currently in the NFL because Bill Belichick is not coaching currently in the NFL. Mike Tomlin has navigated some pretty hapless seasons towards winning seasons, like last year with 3 really awful starting quarterbacks somehow fought his way to a 9-win season and a playoff berth. They have 2 starting quarterbacks now with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson on their roster. Russell Wilson is the named starter through the preseason. We'll see if anything changes through the preseason games, but it looks like that's who they're going to roll with at first. What are your thoughts on the Steelers potentially winning this decision? Is that setting the sights too high with some of the changes they've made?
They're not winning the division. I can almost promise you that because of the Bengals and the Ravens. And let's be honest, this might be the best division in football this year. You might have 3 teams again finish over 500, or 4 teams finish over 500 this season out of the AFC North. And it's impressive as hell, but the Steelers, all depends on what Russell Wilson you get. Because if it is Justin Fields leading the way after 3 weeks of bad Russell Wilson play, then I have zero faith in the team because Justin Fields, while can be a fun quarterback at times, is not a winning quarterback. Russell Wilson has been a winner for the majority of his career. He's been a loser for about 2 years. What Russell Wilson are we getting? Does Mike Tomlin fix what Nathaniel Hackett broke and Sean Payton couldn't fix? Like, is Mike Tomlin that good of a coach? He might be.
Yeah. I mean, he really is. I think he's proven it. Now, to win the division, it means that things would have to go wrong for at least one or both of the other 2 good teams in this division. And I do say the other 2 good teams for obvious reason, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I would think it would take something not catastrophic, but something that hampers the success of the Bengals or the Ravens or both for the Steelers to win this division. But with a little help and a little luck, I could squint and see the Steelers returning to the postseason and maybe even winning a game. I could see the Steelers with Mike Tomlin and Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, or potentially a combination of the 2 of them, making an argument that, wow, maybe they found their future at quarterback. Because you have one old dog who's trying to reclaim his glory days, and you have a young guy with a tremendous upside that you got for nothing. When you think about Justin Fields came into this league as a first rounder, did they give up a 4th or a 5th? What was it that they gave to the Bears? It wasn't much.
Nothing.
So
for either of them, by the way.
So it feels like a win. So yeah, I digress. And by the way, the Steelers aren't paying anything for Russell Wilson. They're paying him vet minimum while the Broncos are on the hook for $80 million.
And they were a 10-win team a year ago.
Speaking of paying quarterbacks a lot of money,
Jesus.
Deshaun Watson is getting paid over $40 million to be the Browns quarterback. He has a fully guaranteed contract, and he has contributed exactly nothing so far since he's been in Cleveland.
Joe Flacco has been a way better Cleveland Brown than Deshaun Watson's ever been. And it's not even close to being falsehood. Like, Joe Flacco led that team to 11 wins a year ago.
Now, when healthy, Deshaun Watson, you can make an argument recently, has been a good quarterback, a competent quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, but nothing nearing the level of proficiency that he exuded when he was the starting quarterback with the Houston Texans.
He was a top 5 quarterback in this league.
That's what they were paying him to be. He was Lamar Jackson, by the way, before Lamar Jackson. Deshaun Watson came onto the scene, and people have short memories, and I get it, and I completely understand. A lot of people are turned off by Deshaun Watson, and you should be. There was a lot there, but speaking strictly about football, he was dynamic. He was the most astonishing dual threat quarterback in the league for a handful of years. And then he completely fell off the map since he's been with the Cleveland Browns. I don't know if he got fat on the contract. I don't know if all of the off the field stuff really completely changed his psychology where he can't compete at the level he used to. We were just talking about Carson Wentz. You know, there's a lot of things that go into the psychology of being great, and maybe getting humbled and humiliated in some ways has an effect on you as a player. And I'm sure it does in the case of Deshaun Watson, but the play does not match what the Cleveland Browns so far has paid him.
Browns are going into this season with Amari Cooper as their wide receiver 1. They did get Jerry Jeudy from the Denver Broncos. Elijah Moore is there. He's a good wide receiver. Nick Chubb is going to be the big question mark, though, right? Nick Chubb, one of the brightest star running backs in this league for the first couple seasons of his career, last year has one of the most horrific knee injuries we've seen in a long time, where everything got destroyed in his knee. and you felt awful for him. And at the time, it was being talked about as potentially a career-altering injury. He is scheduled to potentially come back this year. It's a big question mark. Probably not week 1. We'll see when Nick Chubb is available. But Jerome Ford took over the reins last year as a running back. He had some nice weeks. Of course, it wasn't the same production as Nick Chubb, but missing out on a Nick Chubb, who was a leader on this team. He came in the same year as Baker Mayfield, and he's the one who's still there, right? What does that do to a team?
All right, listen, division winner. I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to say it's the Cincinnati Bengals.
Same.
Okay, wow. Okay, so cool, Joe.
Joe Burrow is my MVP, Rich. I said that.
Yeah, and you meant it, even though you picked a quarterback in the same division just moments ago. All right, coming up next, it went from speculation to reality. We'll get to that on the other side. But first, 877-767-4760. That's our phone number here at San Diego Sports 760. I'm going to give it to you again, 877-767-4760. If you want to win Luke Bryan tickets, you got to call in at exactly 746. That's 746. Be caller number 5. You're winning that pair of Luke Bryan tickets in Chula Vista. More show coming up next.
Hey, it's Fletch, and if you're thinking about losing some weight here in 2024, there's no better place to do it than at sdfatloss.com. All three of us went through the 2-month roadmap period with sdfatloss.com. It's called the reduction phase, and the 2-month period that we went through netted us all 35 pounds lost at least. All three of us lost a tremendous amount of weight in a very quick amount of time. If you're looking to make a big change in your life here in 2024, you got to get on over to sdfatloss.com. Wayne and Chloe were our weight loss team. They can be your weight loss team as well. It's kind of hilarious when we think about it, but Rich Ornberger in the first week with SDFatLoss.com was down like 14 pounds.
It happened fast.
It made you nervous too, but you had a high starting point. Rich was back up near his weight, playing weight. TD was so fat. I can't even believe it. Like, he was so beyond gross. And now he looks fantastic. He's out walking the streets in New York this morning, and I bet you he feels a little bit better as well. For me, myself, ever since I got out of college, I had just been gaining weight nonstop. And especially once I got to be a part of this show, we were eating horrible, disgusting foods, and we were doing it on a regular basis. And I got up to 278 pounds, which is a place I never thought I'd be. This morning, I wake up in the 230s. I feel fantastic. We're going to go out and play golf today. I don't have issues with snoring anymore, which my wife is stoked about. If you're looking to make a big change in your life, SDFatLoss.com is where you need to go. Talk to Wayne and Chloe. Tell them Big Rich, TD, and Fletch sent you. You're going to save $200 on the program. And in about 2 months from now, you can drop 20, 30, 40 pounds if you stick to the program. So SDFatLoss.com is where you got to go. Tell them Big Rich, TD, and Fletch sent you.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch, congratulations. Was it Caesar?
Cesar.
Good job winning those Luke Bryan tickets. We will have more Luke Bryan tickets coming up this week, so keep listening to Big Rich, TD, and Fletch right here on San Diego Sports 760. Also, if you like our show, we have 4 more hours of show coming up later today from 3 to 7 p.m. on 101.5 KGB, San Diego's Classic Rock. Big Rich, TD, and Fletch returns. We do 2 shows every weekday. And frankly, we love it.
Yeah, I've been up to 3, and so have you, because you're cheating on us like every night.
I'm sorry.
Now, what was very funny about yesterday's afternoon show is TD and I did all week last week with Kat Fisher.
That's right.
Who's been filling in. She filled in for you, and this week she's filling in for TD. Next week she'll be filling in for me, and she's awesome. But you found out yesterday Kat Fisher played in the Lingerie Football League.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there was nothing else you could think about.
No, dude, it was so distracting. And I said to her at one of the breaks, I was like, you know, I want you to know that I'm not a creep. I'm like legitimately fascinated in the fact that you were in an upstart league because I watched one. I watched one start and fail when I was with the Alliance of American Football. The San Diego Fleet were here for a moment and then they were gone. The whole league only lasted 8 games. I was a part of the broadcast team with John Schaefer, who will be my partner in the booth for San Diego State Aztecs football games this upcoming season.
Pumped for that.
It's going to be a blast. It was a blast covering the San Diego Fleet or broadcasting calling their games. The problem was the league ran out of money. It was all like a shell game. It was wild to watch what happened to the players when the league crumbled. It was nuts. Guys were stranded in cities.
So what's funny about it, though, is
nuts.
You find that out about Kat, and you immediately have 50 questions about the league, about payments, about travel, about all these different, what position she played. TD and I got to Lingerie Football League. You were like half naked on TV.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, it was like, don't get me wrong. Today on the show on 101.5 KGB, when we're on from 3 to 7, I will be searching and trying to find pictures of her year where she was on the Seattle Mist.
2010.
Yeah. So trust me, we're going to do the deep Google image search. Also, we'll have divorced dad dating disaster stories coming up. Looking forward to that. But before we run and do that, we got to talk some sports with all y'all. And by the way, Caesar, it was really nice to hear from him. He was enjoying the NFL talk. Well, look, we're within striking distance now. It's not ridiculous to break down every division. We're 43 days away. The Hall of Fame game between the Texans and the Bears, That's coming up
next week, next Thursday. We're like almost a week away from the Hall of Fame game. It's time, I think, to start diving fully in. I started listening to my fantasy football podcast that I like.
I love that.
I've started doing some research because I got a rookie draft coming up. Dude, the rookie class this year, outside of the quarterback position, is kind of insane.
Yeah, a lot of receivers.
A lot of receivers and a lot of running backs who could actually make impacts on teams this year. I've just started scratching the surface on that, and it is exhausting. But
speaking of receivers,
I'm ready to be exhausted in the NFL.
I want to have a longer conversation about how like teams can fight back against receiver requests. We're going to get to that in the 8 o'clock hour. But before we do, I want to talk to you about this 18-game schedule coming up in the NFL. It looks like it's imminent. In fact, the NFL Players Association and the NFL had discussions at a quote-unquote very high level over the potentiality of adding a 18th regular season game to the schedule. Executive Director Lloyd Howell was talking to the Washington Post, and he said, look, we've talked at a very, very, very high level superficially with recognition about, yeah, this is something that we should be talking about. And we should really kick the tires and understand what else goes into this decision-making process. So if this is the lead representation of the players speaking publicly about how there are very, 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 he said it 3 times, high-level conversations happening about 18 games, guess what that means, folks?
It's happening.
Yes.
And Roger Goodell did speak earlier this year, and he mentioned the good parts about an 18-game season, that he's in favor of it, adding that he envisions a lengthened schedule that would culminate in a President's Day weekend built around Super Bowl on Sunday night.
Amen. I'm in. And here's the thing, because I know we can't go backwards. I know that 18 games will be a point where we will never go back to 17 or 16, obviously. But let's put it this way. We're not going back to 16 games at 17. And we know that 17 games can't last forever because it gives unfair advantage to certain teams. So certain teams get 9 home games and other teams only get 8. You're going to change it off every year. It's like having an odd number of teams. It doesn't work for long. Expansion is coming. So expansion is coming. And so it's already done. So make this as good as possible. A lengthier season where we have the Monday after the Super Bowl off. I mean, dude, it's what we've been asking for since the dawn of time, since the Super Bowl was a thing. So let's just make it official.
Now, we wouldn't have the Monday after Super Bowl off, but the majority of the American public would. And that's good enough.
Well, you know what it makes? It makes Tuesday morning so much fun.
Yeah.
Because everybody's coming out of their hibernation hole. Tuesday, they're waking up, they're rubbing the eye crust out of the corners of their eye. And before they even get out of bed, they're clicking on the iHeartRadio app. They're clicking over to us and they're listening to us, talking about, oh man, that was the worst Super Bowl. I can't believe both the offense and blah, blah, blah. And why are they playing these outdoors still? It should be in a dome. Or it's going to be like, did you see that throw? Oh my God. And the timeout. Why did he call a timeout?
And Brock Purdy won MVP again. Oh my God. It's so crazy.
No, it's so from the fan aspect, as long as it doesn't dilute the product. And I hope that it does.
I do think 18's the max.
It feels like the absolute tipping point.
And like, if you get past that point, you're going to start dealing with things you don't want to deal with. Like last year, having, 67 quarterbacks play last year. Like that's something we don't ever want to see again. And I don't know if that's a byproduct of the 17-game season, because a lot of the quarterbacks got injured early in the year. I don't know what the cause behind that was. Maybe it was just a one-off. But if we see that start to happen more and more often, like if you go seasons without guys like Joe Burrow playing every single week, you're in trouble.
Coming up next, Aaron Rodgers sounds like a lawyer, not like a starting quarterback. Are receivers going to start getting dominated by front offices in the NFL? And also, we cover the 4 corners of the map with newsman John Fink. That's next.
This update is presented by Evans Tire and Service. Walk in or book online at evanstire.com. We got hour 3, four-corner news desk right around the corner. It's going to be a lot of fun. Padres had the day off yesterday, back at it today in the nation's capital. Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Friars. They're taking on the Nationals for a 3-game series. Remember the last time these two teams played? Drama all over the field. Team USA beat Germany in basketball yesterday. Final score 92-88. It was the final tune-up before the Olympics. Team USA will open up Olympic play this Sunday in Paris against Team Serbia. Now at Evans Tire and Service Center, buy 3 Kumo Solus TA51 tires and get one for free. Optional 6-month deferred financing available with the Evans Tire credit card. Walk in or dial pound 250, keyword Evans Tires. Schedule now.
It's Big Rich, TD, and Fletch on San Diego Sports 760.
The reality of the situation is Dak Prescott, do you trust him in the postseason more than you trust Brock Purdy? My answer is no.
Hell no.
I think
look at his career postseason record. Is he like 2-5?
I believe that's correct.
No, the answer is no. Also, if this list had anything to do with statistics, Brock Purdy would be on the list, and he'd probably be number 2. He had the best stats in the NFL last year.
However, I would look. Okay.
Which that would also be ridiculous. That's why I'm saying that Brock Purdy being left off the list actually makes more sense to me than Matthew Stafford being at number 5.
Now, here are the guys.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. Happy Tuesday to those who celebrate. We're going to talk plenty of NFL this hour, but also we're going to have a drop by from newsman John Fink covering the 4 corners of the globe, so you don't have to. He's going to give us the stories we missed from around the entire world. Also, we will have those if you missed them. I know a lot of people are tuning in this week to win those Luke Bryan tickets. We will have those tomorrow and every day this week leading up to his August 8th show in Chula Vista. So keep listening for your chance to win those this week on Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. And also, we will get to the wide receiver room in the NFL. A lot of organizations seem to be putting the screws to this positional unit. Now, obviously a very important position on the football field, but also a very highly paid position on the football field.
This does remind me a lot of last season, though, because last season going into the season, it kind of felt like the general managers and front offices were waging war on the running backs. I do wonder if this year they've turned their sights to the wide receiver room.
You know what? Actually, let's talk about this briefly because it'll be a nice segue into Bryce Miller's article covering AJ Preller, the general manager and standing president of baseball operations with the San Diego Padres. Bryce Miller caught up with him, wrote a good piece about their conversation in the UT. So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes here. And John Fink will join us soon. But yeah, look, GMs are in the unfortunate position where they have to answer to really 3 people. The head coach, obviously. They work hand in hand with the head coach, shaping out a roster that suits the offense or the defense or the special teams needs. Also, the owner. The owner is essentially the final decision maker. I mean, you can make a lot of decisions without the owner's consent, but it has to cross his desk or her desk or their desk last before it gets stamped, especially if it's a big decision. And then another really kind of unknown character in this whole cast, the salary cap guy. Or girl, because I know that Amy Trask, when she was the CEO of the then Oakland Raiders, she had a lot to do with the salary cap. So the salary cap guy or girl, their job is to make sure that not only the salary cap works this year, but all the years following. Like, so you are a math wizard. You're somebody who cannot make a mistake. And if you do, you will lose your job immediately. You are in a position where you are chained to the numbers. You're not chained to the imagination because the imagination runs wild. But when it comes down to brass tacks, like, you know, we all do this in our own lives. It's like, oh, you know, see this property? I mean, it's got this backyard. The kids can run. It's got like a hacienda. So like when the in-laws come in, they don't even have to stay in our house. And it's only $700,000 out of our price range. And then you start thinking about it. How much more of a down payment do we need? The answer is you don't have the cash flow. So if you don't have the cash flow, you can't buy the house. If you don't have the cash flow, you can't buy the player. And so the salary cap person is the third voice in the room that the GM has to listen to very closely, because if you don't, you'll get fired. So those are the 3 voices. With the wide receivers right now, this market is exploding. It feels like the housing market here in San Diego. Anything near the coast is just bonkers money. We know how it goes. is it going to hit one of those turn downs? Are we going to see a little bit of a slump or a plateau?
So what's wild when you think about is the Kansas City Chiefs let Tyreek Hill go, and the Miami Dolphins immediately paid him a ton of money. The Green Bay Packers let Devontae Adams go, and the Las Vegas Raiders immediately paid him a ton of money. You're starting to enter a window here where the Minnesota Vikings were at that point with Justin Jefferson, and they were like, no, we're going to pay him. We're not letting Justin Jefferson go be an all-pro somewhere else. We're going to keep him. Well, there's other guys around the league who are of the same ilk who are now in brutal contract negotiations with teams a year before their rookie contract is even done. So you have Brandon Ayuk, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, all wanting new contracts, all at training camps with their teams. All of them are in like silence mode right now between the teams and the players. Like, we don't know what's happening with the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb. We don't really know what's happening with the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk. And we just got our first bit of information about Jamar Chase and the Bengals. And the Bengals president said, yeah, it's probably not going to happen this offseason. I do wonder if GMs and coaches and front offices around the league are looking at wide receivers and being like, we can't do this $30 million a year thing to wide receivers. We all got to pay our quarterback $55 million a year. We can't do this with wide receivers now, too. And so you have the three guys who are at the top of the market right now, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Justin Jefferson, who are all making absurd money for the position. And it feels like general managers would be like, we got to stop this train before it gets out of control.
Yeah. Well, listen, the problem is you can only slow it down. You can't stop it. This is so inert. It has so much energy behind it that you can only try to suppress how much you will end up paying these wide receivers. You're not going to be able to completely turn it back the other direction. So it really is a losing battle if you're looking to, I don't know, sign a guy for much less than top 5 money right now when he is anything nearing a top 5 player. It's like getting ready to extend Brock Purdy. Say they have another deep playoff run this season, right? He's going to get paid at very least top 5 money, if not be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL per annual salary, because that's what quarterbacks get paid. The answer to the question is you get paid more than the last guy who got paid. So he will become probably the highest paid player in the NFL if the 49ers season goes well. Now, anything can happen. We know that. And that's the reason why these players like Brandon Ayuk, Chase,
Jamar Chase.
Thank you, Jamar Chase from the Cincinnati Bengals. That's the reason why they want to get paid
because they could have a Nick Chubb injury and their careers change forever.
Dude, 100%. And we see it all the time. How many knees get blown out? How many Achilles get torn? And then it does have an effect. I mean, Kirk Cousins would have signed for more money as a free agent if his Achilles didn't blow out. He would have been able to hold the Minnesota Vikings hostage after having a good season because it was off to a good start. So we presume it would finish well for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Maybe he would still be in Minnesota if he didn't blow out the Achilles. Maybe he would have signed a fat contract with the Vikings. We don't know.
Now, would you say that the GMs kind of won the battle last year against running backs? Because I think they did. They stemmed that conversation. Remember, Austin Eckler was having the Zooms with everybody in the league. Where's Austin Eckler now?
He's with the Washington Commanders.
But he's not getting paid what he wants.
No, he's not getting paid near what he wants, but it's a very different conversation, and here's why. The durability factor. Wide receivers are way more durable, and their careers last longer than running backs. And so especially when we're talking about guys who have some tread on the tire, like Austin Eckler, Zeke Elliott was involved in that conversation. Christian McCaffrey just got a deal. Was it an astounding deal? I mean, it's a good 2-year deal. It's reset. It helped reset the running back market, but it's a short-term deal. It's because you can't trust these guys are going to stay healthy. Before we get to John Fink, our newsman, who's going to cover the 4 corners of the map with us on 4 Corners coming up here in just a moment, AJ Preller spoke with Bryce Miller of the Union Tribune, San Diego, and San Diego Union Tribune. It was a great little conversation, and we learned a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. And I love when Bryce does these little deep investigative pieces because he gets something that we've all thought about and never had the answer to. And he talked to AJ Preller about Juan Soto in the 2 different trades that Juan Soto had involving the San Diego Padres. And here, I'll just read a little snippet of the conversation the 2 had, but this is Bryce Miller talking about it. And in his article, which is at the UT, great article, the Padres reached the 2022 NLCS, but slogged through head-scratching disappointment with a star-crammed clubhouse a season later. Meanwhile, 3 of 5 prospects that the Padres shed became big league contributors. Shortstop CJ Abrams was named to an all-star team this season. Prized arm Mackenzie Gore, who was once known as untouchable, has settled into the rotation, and 21-year-old power bat James Wood is now starting in the outfield. That's the price of a big league poker, Preller reckons. We know we were trading some good players who were going to do some really good things in the big leagues, but you're trading for Juan Soto, an A-lane performer, one of the most impactful forces in the game with control for years. You're going to trade real players to get someone like that. From our standpoint, we had a team we felt could win the World Series. We thought we had Fernando Tatis coming back before his performance-enhancing drug suspension. We were a few games away from the World Series in 2022. Honestly, I don't look back at that with any regrets.
So my reaction to this is I don't disagree with anything he said. I think 100% if you go back to the 2022 season and you reenact the offseason leading into 2023, this roster felt stacked and ready to make a World Series run. They fell just game short, as he pointed out, of winning a World Series in 2022. What would ever lead us to believe that what ended up happening in 2023 would happen? The answer is nothing. That roster performed historically poor, and it's because they never coalesced as a team. There was a lot of selfishness on that team. It felt like they gave up at numerous times throughout the season. It was hard to watch. And Juan Soto, who was the topic du jour when they were speaking, Bryce Miller and AJ Preller, Juan Soto actually admitted as much after that Mariners series a season ago, where he was like, yeah, sometimes we're out there and we just give up. That's almost verbatim what he said. It's crazy to hear that from as impactful and important a player as Juan Soto on a roster. So look, year over year, I feel better about the team he's constructed this season. Although I will say that with some reticence because they don't have near the star power they did a year ago.
And they don't have near the pitching that they had a year ago. Now, you can say, and I see this a lot online, man, it would be nice to have Mackenzie Gore right now. Or man, it would be nice to have CJ Abrams right now. You got to go at that with the understanding that one of the Padres' best pitchers this year has been Michael King. You don't have Michael King if you don't trade Juan Soto to the Yankees. So it's, yes, you're losing out on Mackenzie Gore. Michael King's had a better season than Mackenzie Gore. And you don't get one without the other. So it's a little tricky when you look back at the trade, but I don't have any regrets as a Padres fan.
Yeah.
The way the whole Juan Soto thing went. I remember 2022. That was the most fun I've ever had in San Diego.
Because if you remember,
I was partying my face off.
I don't regret it either. You trade away Juan Soto. Remember, you got all of those prospects and major leaguers back in return from the Yankees, and you only had to trade away Juan Soto.
Lap.
Oh,
well, hang on. No, you got to have
that's a lap. That's wow.
Are you just trying to beat Travis? By the way, Travis Dale has texted us. He is in New York.
Yeah.
He is crying at the 9/11 memorial this morning.
Yeah.
Good for TD.
He's really enjoying his trip.
There's parts of it that he's really enjoyed. There's parts of it that he's really hating. Let's leave it at that. Rich, halftime.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the show. If you've missed a lot, you're welcome. It hasn't been great. But from this point forward, we promise greatness with our newsman, John Fink. Actually, who am I throwing the halftime to?
Wow.
This is your halftime.
Yeah, this is you.
Halftime?
You're doing this.
Jesus. All right, hang on a second, guys. Hang on. I want to talk to you about the Packers. The Packers and Jordan Love may be nearing a deal, but the superstar has informed the team that he is not going to play a single snap of football here on out until they get this deal consummated. So training camp practice opened yesterday. Brian Gutekunst, the team's general manager.
Gutekunst?
That's right.
How'd you say it?
Gutekunst.
I think there's a sneaky I in there that's not listed, but they pronounce it with the I.
There's so many letters I want to add to that or switch. Anyways, he said yesterday that until a deal is done, Jordan Love will not be appearing at practice or in any of the preseason games. Everybody feels like a deal is very close, though. Kevin Durant, his timeline to play for Team USA keeps getting pushed back. He's dealing with the calf strain. But Steve Kerr, head coach of USA Basketball, said that he is going to make the roster. He's not going anywhere. He's coming with the team to Paris. They finished their pre-Olympic slate 5-0. Speaking of the Olympics, American rapper Snoop Dogg is going to be a torchbearer. He's going to be carrying the flames for that will later be combined with others and then put into the official torch of the Olympics through the suburbs of Paris. My hope is that he lights a joint using the flame.
Either that or I hope he doesn't drop it like it's hot.
Is that Snoop Dogg?
I feel like we both owe a lap now.
We probably do.
Can we hold hands?
Yeah.
Snoop also owes a lap because you guys know that Snoop runs like a youth football league in Southern California.
Yeah.
I found that out this morning.
Yeah, no, he's been actively involved in youth football for a long time. In fact, his son's a college football player.
Do you know what the championship of that league is called?
No, I do not.
The Snooper Bowl.
No.
Buddy, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
he does
that's
not
not
owe
a
a
lap.
lap. In fact, he's taken away both of mine and John's
Yes.
laps for how cool that is.
I'll allow it.
That has totally cooled our uncool, which brings us now to the Four Corners news desk with John Fink, who spans the globe for the stories we may have
This
missed.
is true. Being 6'10", I do have that wingspan. Scouring the globe to find the stories you didn't know you needed to know from the Four Corners news desk. I'm John Fink. We're going to start off at Disneyland. Recent vacation you all right? Vacation destination for our buddy Rich here. Disney, as part of their maintenance program, shuts down rides and updates them and everything. They're now removing one of the Country Bear Jamboree animatronic bears at the Magic Kingdom.
Why?
Well, they're removing a bear known as Liver Lips McGrowl. That is his real name.
I hate to admit this, but that was my college nickname, Liver Lips McGrowl.
That's a good name.
Thank you.
That people will kind of stay away from you when they hear that name.
Also, many thought I was an animatronic bear.
Well, I think we both are, really.
Go on.
Well, they removed it for fears it might be offensive to alcoholics.
Liver Lips McGrowl? Oh, is he drinking?
Well, no, but liver lips apparently is a very, very old term that can be associated with alcohol abuse and liver damage.
See, you know what? I feel like we're straying way too far from
Yes.
the path. Like, I mean, are there going to be any alcoholics showing up at Disneyland going, I object to
I
this.
can't stand what they're saying about me.
My
Liver
people
lips.
have been oppressed for years.
That's right.
Yeah, this is dumb.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there any group that's safe to offend anymore?
No,
White people? You can offend us, right?
I guess. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
Well, that he is going to be replaced by Romeo McGrowl,
Okay.
which is a very similarly looking bear, just with a different hairstyle.
Well, I'm going to say this. I was born on Valentine's Day, and I take offense to them absconding with the holiday of my birth and naming this bear Romeo after the Shakespearean character who is synonymous with love. So, no, you won't call him Romeo. Not if me and my peoples have anything to say about
All
it.
of your Valentine's Day born people,
Yeah.
you're going
And
to
there's
band together.
So many of them.
That's true.
Anyways.
Well, it is, it is part of their, they're doing a lot of this. They're getting rid of other things. In addition, they're getting rid of Tinkerbell meet and greets at parks because how Tinkerbell is portrayed in Peter Pan film.
Is she too hot?
I will say this. It depends on how meat is spelled.
Oh, wow.
Now, Rich, no offense. This camera does not help.
Yeah, why? What are you doing, man?
I'm plugging things in. John, stop it.
I'm not. What am I
Just keep
stopping?
you keep reading
I'll
the
keep
news.
reading.
Turn
All
that
right.
one back to John.
It's
Well,
on you now.
That does nothing for us.
This is going great.
Hey, by the way, I
Yes.
will say this. I say all this in jest because the truth is every single time I go to that park,
Mhm.
I cry with joy.
Me too. Yes.
It's very embarrassing to admit this, but there hasn't been a single night at Disneyland where I'm not literally sobbing, crying, watching the fireworks with my kids. I've only gone with my kids. And
It's a magical experience,
so I'm
hence the
saying-
name.
This past time, I'm saying with producer Chris from Channel 933,
Oh, yeah.
like we were in this area, like by the train station down Main, was it Mainland? Main Street,
Sure.
Disneyland. And I'm standing there and we're having a conversation. I'm holding the kids in my arm. All of a sudden the fireworks start. And there's so much tears on my cheeks. I'm like, if he looks at me, he's gonna think there's something wrong with me.
Are you having an allergic reaction? Are you
Yes,
allergic to
so
fireworks,
I'm
Rich?
literally like slowly moving away from him because he's a coworker. We see each other every morning.
Sure.
I was crying so hard I was embarrassed.
Well, I get it though, because look,
I really like Disneyland. Okay,
No,
Big
I'm
fella,
with you.
big emotions.
as somebody with a hospitality background, it's the height of hospitality.
yeah, they figured
It
it out.
is,
I don't know,
yes.
whatever they do. I don't know if it's something they pump in the air, but I have a good time when I go there. Anyways, your next story. John.
Yes. Next story. Just in time for Comic-Con this week. Oh, I'm so going. I am.
What are you dressing up as?
Comic-Con,
I'm-
I am in you.
Yes. You normally don't dress up. It's hard enough for me to find regular person clothes, let alone a costume. Also, it's really hot.
Yeah.
So I just
So what are you dressing up as?
I'm dressing up as a 6'10" Comic-Con fan. I usually do like nerdy t-shirts, or I
Yeah.
have my my Star Wars Aloha shirts that I like to wear.
You do have a plethora, which is to say,
Thank you. That means a lot.
Massive abundance of nerdy t-shirts and button-ups.
Thank you. That does mean a lot. Well, just in time, data from Circana shows that adults 18 and up have now surpassed kids ages 3 to 5 to become the biggest customer demographic in the toy industry.
Wait. Say that one more time. What demographic was it? And what
Adults
is it?
18 and up have now surpassed kids ages 3 to 5 in toy purchase and consumption.
You know, there was a point, and I rewatched Band of Brothers recently.
Okay.
There was a point where our 18 and ups, you know, they were drafted or willingly volunteered to be dropped in at
Yes.
the beaches of Normandy, you know, taking over Omaha, you know, storming machine gun nests.
Right.
And now our 18-year-olds are buying Funko Pops.
And they're crying over fireworks and stuff too, apparently.
Oh, damn it. I didn't say I would be one of those guys who volunteered.
Oh, it's okay.
I for sure would have been drafted. I would be like,
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
scared. Yeah.
I'm too tall for this foxhole.
This is also, yes, this is our plight.
Is anybody else's boots too tight?
Yeah. Can I go just like clean tables or something? You know?
Yeah. Can I work in the mess hall? That was cool when we were back in what do they call it? Training camp, boot camp.
Yeah.
I really like the mess hall.
Mess hall, just like cooking stuff up for everybody.
Yeah, spaghetti.
Oh, yeah. Well, there is a term now called kidulting.
Kidulting?
Kidulting, which is saying that, you know, grown-ups are coming back to the toy aisle. You mentioned Funko Pops, of course, and there will be plenty of kidults at Comic-Con this year.
Okay, I will say this, and this is a true story.
Okay.
Recently, my youngest, my 6-year-old, has gotten very into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nice.
That was my reaction, which
Nice.
felt like a slight overreaction.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
I was like, yes,
Yes.
this is rad.
Let's run with this.
So so I'm reading him a book, and then we found a comic, and he's like, wants to watch the cartoon. So then I realized that we were at a store that sold action figures, and I just felt like he needed all of them.
Sure.
And so while on vacation, I bought all of them, and Anne was pissed. She was like, where are we going to store these in the suitcases? I'm like, we will find room.
We will ship it ahead of us.
If we need to buy an extra bag. And then I realized, so I didn't play with them more than he did, but I was absolutely more excited about seeing stuff. Like Michelangelo came with a little pizza thing that he could throw.
Oh, the throwing disc action.
Raphael
Oh, yeah.
and his ninja size, they were over large. They were too large for his hands. And then I realized why, because they weren't the ones that looked up. Anyways, the point is, I get it.
I get it too. You know, I was just at the Ontario Comic-Con. Yes, I'm a kidult. And I saw a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book #1 signed by both the creators. How much do you want to think that sold for?
I'm going to say that probably sold for $100,000.
You overshot it a little bit. $22,000.
Dude,
It's a John Fink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody bought it. I don't know.
Anyways,
in
I
other
gotta
news,
talk to
I need to go sell my car.
my financier about a loan extension.
That's right. Second mortgage. Here we go. Just for a comic book.
Fletch, do you own any action figures or comic books?
No action figures, yes, comic books. I have the Walking Dead jumbo comic book that has all of them within one book. It's massive.
Wow.
It's
Very nice.
Over 1,000 pages. And then I just bought a bunch of the Boys comic books.
Oh, yeah.
New TV show on Prime.
Amazon one, yeah.
I
Turns
can't hang
out
with that one.
The Boys,
it's very
It's
violent.
too violent. for me.
the comic books are more violent
Oh,
and more
boy.
deranged and more depraved, and it is tough to read.
Wow.
You crack open Fletch's head, you're gonna find a lot of stuff you
It's
don't
a
want to
horror
see.
show.
They also
Yeah,
use
I can't talk. My, Fink Studios at home is surrounded by all of my Gen 1 Transformers and Star Wars characters. And
John
Yeah.
Fink, are you in on the new Transformers movie that's coming out that looks a little bit more like the old stuff, not necessarily the Shia LaBeouf stuff?
I have mixed feelings about it. I will give it a chance, but they lost me after the first one.
Can I ask you this
Wait,
question?
Yes.
you didn't like the Shia LaBeouf Megan Fox Transformers movies?
Let me check my notes. No.
Michael Bay may have overdone it a
A
little,
little bit, yes.
Okay, but Megan Fox in those movies?
Bingo.
Prime.
Toe thumbs?
Yeah. Old toe thumbs.
Old toe thumbs.
I'll tell you what. Anyways,
I learned a lot about myself in those first couple movies.
that was,
Oh, wow.
those were formative years for Fletch.
Yeah, apparently
He-
it's more than meets the eye.
He taught The question I had was these Gen 1 Transformers.
Yes.
How often do you tend to them? Like, how often are you dusting them? How often are you like moving them around? I don't want to say playing with them because that would sound like too immature. But
Oh, sure.
yeah,
There's some shall we say maintenance that goes on,
of course.
I pull out the Ziploc bag full of all of the matching guns that I still all have. Just
So, John, you can see yourself out. I think
Yes,
that is all for
John's
Four
a
Corners.
nerd.
remind me to call my therapist.
All right. Well, that's Four Corners. We do it every Tuesday with our newsman, John Fink. Thank you, buddy.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You did it again. It's unbelievable. So consistent. A home run hitter every time. All right. Coming up next, we step away from baseball. We get back to the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, I think he's litigating verbiage like Clinton did when he argued over the word is. That's next.
iHeartRadio Music Festival is coming up and selling out. Get on over to AXS.com now. September 20th and 21st at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. 2 nights, 1 stage, and the list goes on and on. Halsey and Dua Lipa, the most recent additions to go along with the likes of Shabuzi, the Black Crows, Thomas Rhett, and so much more. Get on over to AXS.com. Buy your tickets now for the iHeartRadio Music Festival in Las Vegas in September. This update is presented by Sid's Carpet Barn. We will start off here with the Padres, who have a 3-game series out in Washington, D.C. Randy Vasquez is going to be on the mound for the Friars as they take on the Nationals here for the next 3. Team USA beat Germany in basketball yesterday. Final score 92-88. It was the final tune-up before the Olympic Games. Team USA will open up Olympic play this Sunday in Paris against Serbia as they open up group play. And sticking with the Olympics, Snoop Dogg going to be carrying the torch during the opening ceremonies on Friday. Snoop will also be a part of NBC's broadcast. For over 70 years, San Diegans have trusted Sid's Carpet Barn for all their floor covering needs. At Sid's, you'll always find great service, low everyday prices, and the largest selection of carpet, wood, laminate, and tile flooring with immediate installation too. Visit Sid's Carpet Barn or sidscarpet.com.
Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. Happy Tuesday to all y'all out there. You hear? So coming up, I got to fix my camera. So yeah, we always have John Fink come in on Tuesdays and we reorganize the furniture.
Can I do a second morning monologue and get your advice on something, Rich?
Yeah, sure.
Deeply personal, this one. So I got my vacation time coming up next week, and I'm going out to the Midwest, and I'm going to see a bunch of Kendall's family, then see a bunch of my family. Now, Kendall is having a little bit of a panic with the airlines. And everything that's going on right now, which it's supposed to be fixed by this week.
She's like Annie. They run a little hot. They're a little stressed.
Worry.
Yeah, warriors.
And that's fine. It's a good thing to have one of those in the family because God knows I'm not, right?
Dude, it feels like we are the same person in different households sometimes because I'll hear we share a lot. I'll hear the conversations that you and Kendall have, and I'm like, I mean, it's just me and Ann 10 years ago.
Like, seriously, thank goodness I do have Kendall because otherwise my life would be a disaster. But
yeah, that's correct.
In this case, I do think I'm right because there is golf planned on this trip because I'm on a trip with my dad and my brother and my brother-in-law, and that's what we do. We golf. We like to do stuff like that. We like to hang out with each other outside for 4.5 hours and drink a lot. That's kind of what we do. Kendall's not letting me check my golf clubs because she's worried that the bag will get lost.
Okay, check it out. This is what you have to do. Pitch to her that it's actually a good thing to lose your baggage because A, it's not mission critical. You can always rent golf clubs. And B, or play out of your dad's bag, play out of your brother's bag. You probably could get away with not having, you go to
they have better clubs than me anyway.
Yeah, you go to the club pro, you say, hey, listen, my clubs got lost on the flight. You know, the airlines, it's been crazy lately. Could you please, just take pity on us? Let me just play out of my dad's bag. Because sometimes there's rules, like every golfer needs to have their own bag, but sometimes they're lenient. So depending on what country club you go to or what golf course you go to. So that's where you start the conversation. Say it's not mission critical that they get there. And there's been no point in my life, and I've had a couple bags lost, that we've lost the luggage. Like it's never just been gone. You know what I mean? It's always found its way back to the home airport. It's just taken some time sometimes. The other benefit to this is every single airline has a refund service. If your bag's actually lost, it may take a little, kind of mental gymnastics, and it may take a couple of phone calls, but you can actually get them to pay for, within reason, for a certain amount of items lost that were mission critical for the trip you were taking. So I remember one time I needed a suit for what I was traveling to, and the airline misplaced my luggage. And so I went out and bought a suit. And then I think it was American Airlines paid for my suit. I sent them the receipts. I put them in an email. I did the whole thing that they told me to do. I filled out a form. And sure enough, American Airlines sent me a check to my house.
Did you get a way nicer suit?
It was a better fitting suit. On top of it all, like it was a better suit than the one I owned. So it was. So my point, like, explain all that to her.
So I should try to lose my golf clubs, get the airline to pay for a new set of golf clubs, go to the Kingdom up in Carlsbad and get fitted for a brand new set of TaylorMades. That's what you're saying I should do.
That's exactly what I can't believe you. Yeah, that's exactly what I just said.
I'll just spend $3,500 on a new clubs and expect an airline to pay for it.
Yeah, that's right. Southwest is going to take care of Spirit Airlines.
We're actually flying Delta on the way there.
Oh, that's it, but it's good.
Delta's having a lot of issues right now, though.
Yeah, so it may not be good. Well, Delta, it's funny you mention that. So I was in the Delta terminal coming back from JFK Airport. We were sitting across from a lady who was delayed 31 hours in that terminal.
So the same flight that we're taking, by the way, is this upcoming Friday night has been canceled the last 2 nights.
Yeah, Delta's struggling. Listen, a lot of these airlines are, because this whatever it was, this software update or this glitch or this CrowdStrike outage, this cyber security software just failed, and it only failed for 30 minutes, but it screwed everything up.
You saw that like only a couple airlines were totally unaffected by it. It's because their
I told you about this
stuff was too old.
Southwest. So the reason why Southwest struggles during the holidays is because when they're inundated with their operation, I learned this all from a flight crew on Delta, actually. They said when their software is inundated with all the weather updates around the holiday times, because there's so many travelers and so many crews in there, their software doesn't update fast enough. So they're working with information that's 20 minutes old. And so that's why there's always so many delays, because they're waiting for the software to literally tell them where people should go. Whereas these other airlines, they're all running more modern operating systems. But the problem is it avails you to, some of these glitches or outages or, potential, I guess, hacks or spyware, whatever. But the thing is, Southwest during this whole fiasco was completely untouched. They were unharmed because
they're running Windows 97.
No, it's something that predates Windows, because it was all the Windows software that struggled. Anyways, I digress. You'll be fine if you pitch to her that the clubs will make it home eventually.
So because we're also kind of married to similar people, you understand these golf clubs aren't getting on the plane.
Yeah. Like, I also know that.
Put their boot down.
This is what I will say is sneak them in the back of the car in a traveling case, just in case, and then see if there's a way they can get checked in without her knowing. If that's possible, I would do it, because a lot of times I'm a big ask for forgiveness, not for permission guy, especially when it comes to Ann sometimes, because I feel like she over worries about things. And when it works out, then I'll be like, hey, I did this thing, and see, there was nothing to worry about.
All good.
And sometimes I actually get in more trouble. But anyways, do what you think you need to do. I don't want to get you in trouble. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give you this advice. Forget everything I just said. Listen to Kendall. I don't want to be in trouble with the Kendall. So we have Aaron Rodgers, who had a lot to say recently. He joined one of the Barstool podcasts, Pardon My Take. Is that what it's called?
I think the Big Cat one.
Yeah. Okay. Pardon My Take. So he jumped on with those guys. And they had a full-blown conversation. But one of the most interesting parts of his commentary about the controversy over the missed minicamp was the fact that he wasn't arguing over whether or not he should be fined. He wasn't arguing over like the fact that it was mandatory, really. He was arguing over the verbiage used. Give this a listen. So what he's trying to say is OTAs are one thing, minicamps are another thing. And this has been bastardized. So he hasn't missed anything much. This would be the same thing as if he missed OTAs. They just all of a sudden labeled arbitrarily one area of the calendar minicamp. And those were the days that I had to go on my journey to Egypt is apparently where he was. I'm not 100% sure. That was a different part of the interview. So maybe the Egypt trip was earlier in the offseason, but wherever he was, it almost doesn't matter.
He does a really good job of making me really confused.
But this is what lawyers do. This is what lawyers do. When they talk circles around semantics, it gets you, it's almost like sleight of hand. Why does magic work? For the most part, it's because a magician can get you looking somewhere else when the illusion is actually occurring. A trick is a trick because they are tricking you. He's using tricky language to get you to his side of the fence. What he's trying to say is, like, if say say you have a bunch of meetings scheduled throughout your month. I don't know, your employer, he says you don't have to be at all of these, but there is going to be a weekend where you absolutely need, like, it's all hands on deck, and I'll let you know when that weekend's going to be. And so you say, okay, so we're months out. You don't have to really worry about it. And then within, say, 2 months, he makes the decision. It's going to be this weekend. Everybody lock in. That's the mandatory weekend. If you can make it to the other handful of meetings we have, whether it's 5, whether it's 10, make it to most of those if you can. But the most important thing is that one weekend. You got to be there that one weekend. And everybody agrees. And everybody else in your organization, the business you work for, shows up, except for you. What does it say about you? Yeah, maybe you could make the argument, well, the meetings we had during that weekend were very similar to all the meetings we had, the other 10 meetings we had during the rest of the month. So why do we have to designate some special importance over that weekend? How about this? Just because we got to get everybody together every once in a while and discuss things as a group, a full group where we're uninterrupted for a little bit. That's the point that I think he's missing in all of this. And that's the reason why I think it's a silly argument.
He's also a pretty important piece of that organization. I would say that the Jets have kind of moved heaven and earth to make sure Aaron Rodgers is there and happy.
You could argue the most important piece.
Yes, 100%. Not even close. Aaron Rodgers is a fool. Whatever. I think he's still going to have a great year.
I do too.
I honestly don't think much of this matters. He also went on a rant on the same podcast. I listened to a little bit of it yesterday where he was talking about the fact that mini camp and training camp used to be hard and now it's easy physically. Mentally, it's more demanding now, but physically it's easy. And then, of course, Big Cat came up with the make football hard again. Aaron Rodgers took it because Aaron Rodgers lives in a political space a lot of the time now. And so make football hard again is going to be Aaron Rodgers' mantra this year.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think Aaron Rodgers needs to be kept happy but surly in order to play well. You can't cross too many lines with him, but I actually think that this is a good thing for the Jets. The fact that there's controversy. Look, all of these great players, they need to play with chips on their shoulders. Tom Brady, he had a boulder on his shoulder. He kept it there his whole career. He was pissed that he was a 6th rounder for his whole career. I can't believe I was overlooked this many times. Michael Jordan, he would make up fictitious storylines about opponents to get him fired up for games. Aaron Rodgers, he needs something to fire him up for this upcoming year. If he wants to really win a Super Bowl, he needs to play with some level of, I'm going to prove them all wrong. It's me against the world. That's Aaron's deal. And I think this is a point where he can stick his foot in. And even as justified as this argument may be, it may fuel him to play better this upcoming season.
Would it surprise you if the birth of load management in the NFL began with Aaron Rodgers?
Would it surprise me? Look, we already have load management in the NFL. Like when good teams, really good teams are finishing up their season and they don't need another win necessarily to improve their lot in the playoffs, you see starters getting rested.
Yeah, but I don't even consider that load management. I consider load management like if throughout the regular season, a guy is taking a day off when their future's not decided, because that's what it is in the NBA.
We see it at practice time. We won't see it in games. Maybe 18 games changes things slightly. But I don't see it. I think there's so much urgency even with an 18-game schedule, that the only load management you're going to see at the end of the season, you're going to see is going to be at the end of the season. But even then, it's not going to seem so bizarre to us, but because we've seen it before, and it's only going to be for the select few who can really sacrifice those starts from their starting quarterback or running backs or wide receivers, what have you. All right, coming up next, bottom of the barrel, Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. Big Rich, TD, and Fletch. If you missed out on the Luke Bryan tickets today, we will have your opportunity to win those coming up tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. We're going to finish the week giving out those great pairs of tickets to see Luke Bryan down there in Chula Vista. Awesome country show. Congrats to Caesar today for winning those tickets. Huge thanks to Jonas Knox earlier jumping on the show. We have bottom of the barrel today, and we have a couple of stories to choose from. So you're familiar with the Hawk girl, right?
No, I'm not, Rich. What's she famous for?
Yeah. Well, so what's fascinating about where we are in culture is you could have a drunken street interview while you're out with your girlfriends or your guy friends in Nashville. And overnight, you can become a important celebrity influencer to the extent where you can show up for a few hours at a bar, make 5-digit contracts. You can become a national celebrity, whatever that means at this point, appearing on some of the most famous podcasts and programs. You can become a philanthropist. So the Hawk Tua girl, her name's Haley Welch, who went viral for the interview she gave on the streets, hammered drunk while she was out partying one night in Nashville. She now bought a whole bunch of like pet food and dog toys for a local animal shelter. And she basically admitted, she was like, look, a lot of people are saying I only have 15 minutes for my fame. So if I only have 15 minutes, I'm going to do some good. And so she went out and she did some good.
She's doing it the right way. I will say, like, she's jumped on, like you said, a ton of famous podcasts. She made a song with that Jax girl who actually performed here in studio at one point, but Jax, and she made a song explaining what Hawk Tua means to your grandmother.
Yep.
And it was funny. It was cute. And you know what? She's doing it the right way. Props to her.
Well, here's the deal. I think this is proof. And I saw this coming. We've had these conversations, behind the scenes about what people really need out of, I would say like our listeners have become friends of ours. I mean, if you meet us outside of this show, this is who we are. There's no show business. We're just a bunch of guys who like to drink and play golf and have fun and party with our friends. And that's kind of our vibe. And so if you dig it, we're thrilled to have you along for the ride. But the point I'm trying to make is when everywhere you look around the news and around politics and frankly around, other celebrities who are famous for other things, you see a lot of inauthentic kind of phonies, but authenticity wins. Hawk Tua girl, Haley Welch, that's as authentic as it gets. It really is who she is. People dig it.
Golf day for me and Richie, so we'll see you guys at 3:00, but we might be a little drunk when we do that. So wish us luck as our marathon of a day continues here. Thank you to Caesar, who won those tickets. Thank you to Jonas Knox joining the show earlier. Newsman John Fink in the Four Corners newsroom. Catch all that on the free iHeartRadio app. It will be posted as soon as we get off the air. Thank you, Richie. TD, by the way, safe in New York, walking the streets, loving life.
Yeah, he's having a lot of fun out there. All right, we continue on with the herd. Colin Coward coming up next. San Diego Sports 760 will be back tomorrow.